Good afternoon. It is Friday, March 19th, 2021. This is a virtual regular meeting of the Commissioners of the City of Rehoboth Beach. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 2:00 p.m. I'd like to start off with roll call of the Commissioners. Commissioner Patrick Gossett.
Here.
Commissioner Susan Gay.
Here.
Commissioner Richard Byrne.
Here.
Commissioner Edward Shanowski.
Here.
Commissioner Pat Caluzzi.
Here.
Commissioner Jay Legree.
Here.
And I'm Mayor Stan Mills. We have a full complement. We have a quorum. We're able to formally conduct business today. Thank you all for being here, Commissioners. I'd like to welcome all the watchers. Actually, first I'd like to identify the staff that's here with me. Takes a lot of people to run a meeting. We've got City Manager Sharon Lynn, City Solicitor Glenn Mandalis, Public Works Director Kevin Williams, Chief of Police Keith Banks, Evan Miller, Project Manager, and the Head of the IT Department, Max Hamby. Thank you all for being here as well. With that, I'd like to welcome all the watchers that are watching us stream live or watching us recorded at your will. I would like to thank those that registered in advance to speak today. We have 12 people that signed up to speak. I'd like to poll each of you individually right now to see what topics you would like to speak at so that I don't have to call on you for every topic, because I'm not sure that you want to speak on every topic, although you're certainly welcome to. With that, I'm going to take the public speakers registered in advance in sequence. Carol Everhart, do you have any particular, other than your liaison report, do you have any other particular items or topics that you're focused on?
No, Mayor, I do not.
All right, thank you, Carol. We'll call on you for the liaison report. Dr. Michael Trejos, are you there? Would you identify which topics you would like to talk about today?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'll be speaking on the subsurface parking with regard to the FAR and the 5G topic. All
right, the three public hearings. Very good. Thank you, Dr. Trejos. Mr. Papajohn, Mr. Papajohn 2, and Peter Filat, I know you're all together. Would one of you like to speak for all of you and identify the topics that you'd like to be called on today? They on board? Yeah. Yep. You there, Alex?
Yeah, I think that I think one of us is likely to speak about item number 12 on the agenda, the draft ordinance regarding the gross floor area underground parking. I'm probably just going to be listening, but we'll see how things unfold. All righty,
thank you very much. With that, we go to Connie Mullenberg. Connie, what topic or topics would you like to be called on today?
Connie has not joined the meeting.
Connie's not on yet. Marty Johnson. We've got you and Dan Slagle and Greer. I assume you all would like to talk during the liaison report about Main Street. Are there any other topics you would like to talk about?
No, this is Marty Johnson. I only want to speak about the Rehoboth Beach Farmers Market.
Farmers Market. I've got, very good. I've got you down there for that, Marty. Walter Brittingham, any particular topics you'd like to target?
Good afternoon. Thank you. Interested in Grove Park and the Farmers Market and the budget. Have no interest in FAR. Otherwise, I'll keep it brief, but come on.
Thank you, Walter. Dan and Greer from Main Street. I'll start over again. I think you obviously would like to talk during the liaison report for Main Street. Are there any other topics?
That would be it.
That's it. Thank you very much. Rick Perry, please identify what you'd like to talk to today. Rick's not on yet. And Wesley Paulson, I understand that you'd like to talk at the citizen comment at the end. Is there anything else you would like to be called on during the meeting? Leslie's not on yet. We'll come back. Thank you very much. You can certainly speak on any topics you want, but this helps expedite the meeting a little bit. We appreciate that. I also want to remind everybody that support documents are embedded in the agenda. I would like to let you know and the commissioners know to take a look at this agenda in particular. There are support documents embedded in the agenda such that when you click on it, it opens the document right in the portal there. But there are also linked items there. By example, if you print out the support document package, you'll get, what, 103 pages long. But that will omit the 40-some pages of the budget, which are a separate link and take you to the document center. So you need to do a little investigation. It just keeps us from making this 150, 200-page long support document package. So please be advised. With that, we'll go to correspondence. Excuse me. Correspondence, as you see, is embedded in the agenda today. With that, we're going to go to approval of the minutes. We have the following sets of minutes in front of us today that are listed there. Are there any changes that need to be made to any of the minutes? If not, then I would seek a motion to approve the minutes of the following: executive session held on March 8th, regular meeting held on February 19th, special meetings held on February 23, March 8th, March 9th, and March 12th, all in the year 2021. Could I entertain a motion for those 6 sets of minutes to be approved, please?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion to approve the 6 sets of minutes as presented by Commissioner Gay, and we have a second by Commissioner Dick Byrne. All those in favor of approval of the 6 sets of minutes, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And the minutes are approved unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go right to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon, commissioners. We have one street aid expenditure to Delmarva Power in the amount of $9,620 for streetlights.
I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the payment for the Delmarva Power invoice in the amount of $9,620.
So moved. Second.
Who moved first?
Jay.
We have a motion by Commissioner Legree to approve the Delmarva Power invoice in the amount of $9,620, and with a second by Commissioner Dick Byrne. With that, like all those that are in favor of approving and authorizing city manager to pay that check, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, say nay. And the bill is authorized to be paid by the city manager. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to city solicitor's report. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just have a few things.
We'll continue with the city manager, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Concerning the Lake Avenue Streetscape Project Phase 2, the contractor has finished the curbs and sidewalks, and the contractor has demobilized the paving contractor and is waiting to schedule asphalt delivery so they can do the final paving. The project should be finished within a few weeks. Regarding the sewer lining project on King Charles Avenue that we recently told you about, excuse me, this project will extend from Rehoboth Avenue to Lake Drive, and that has been occurring this week with a finish date by the end of next week. Excuse me. So city staff, we've been working on how we can meet State Division of Public Health COVID-19 regulations to allow us to have outdoor special events take place in the city. The bandstand has recently received Department of Public Health approval for its COVID-19 plan. We'll be able to start having concerts there by limiting the seated audience and following other state requirements such as social distancing requirements. First concert will be June 11th, and the Seashore Strikers also have received state approval to run their races under the COVID restrictions. The first race will be June 1 in Rehoboth Beach. The Chamber will be hosting the sidewalk sales in May, and at this point, we do not have a firm yes or no on July 4th fireworks. We do have a June 1 deadline to determine for the vendor, so we're still working on that. I invite everyone to look from the outside public parking lot into the atrium area to see the Gary Hughes sculpture. This was placed last week. This is a partnership between the city and the Rehoboth Art League. This is a sculpture done by Mr. Gary Hughes called The Bus Stop. And Mr. Hughes was an award-winning artist who lived his last few years in Rehoboth Beach until he passed away in 2016. His widow, Ellen Roney Hughes, still lives here, is a board member of the Art League. And hopefully, once we permit everyone to come back into the building, the Rehoboth Art League hopes to have a fundraising dedication in the atrium. It's a lovely sculpture, and I would invite everyone to view that. As far as Boardwalk recycling goes, Mr. Williams is concerned about the safety of the sanitation workers due to COVID-19, so we're temporarily holding off on beginning Boardwalk recycling. We did hear, and we did have some staff vaccinated yesterday. The governor made special arrangements to have vaccines dispensed to first-line workers in municipalities, staff workers such as the streets department, city arborists, anyone that comes in contact or might come in contact with the public. So that was opened up yesterday, and we did open that up to our staff. So hopefully, as the crowds increase, we will be able to relax our other regulations, and once we have our sanitation workers vaccinated, we will address the Boardwalk recycling project. As far as the water system connection that we've been discussing for over a year with Henlopen Acres, the valves and interconnection will be installed starting soon, next week, and the two water distribution systems near the boundary line at St. Michael's Place, that will, I guess it's starting on March 29th. It should take 2 days to complete this work if anyone sees work being done on Henlopen Avenue at St. Michael's Place. The city will be closed Friday, April 2nd, Good Friday, for the Good Friday holiday. That's all I have now.
Very good. Any questions? Commissioner DeLagree? Yes, sir.
How long? I just love that sculpture. Just love it. How long can we keep it?
I think we can keep it for a very long time, Commissioner.
Oh, boy.
So they donated it to the city. It was a project that is actually first placed and completed in response to an RFP from the San Diego airport. So that was done many years ago. It was on display in the San Diego airport. Mr. Hughes completed that. And then it was brought back to Easton, Maryland, and placed in their art museum there, and then it was in storage. So when the Rehoboth Art League brought that to the city's attention, I actually went to Easton, looked at it, thought it was wonderful. They cleaned it up, brought it back here, and now it's on display.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other, if there's no other commissioner comments, we'll go to the next item of business, city solicitor's report. Glenn, do you have anything?
Mayor, just, for those in the public who might not have seen it, the planning commission appeal of the clear space and Rehoboth spotlight decisions was moved from an April 18 appeal hearing to a June 14 appeal hearing now. So, extended out a little bit further. That's all I have, Mayor.
Very good. Changed from April 8th.
April 8th.
8th to June 14th at 9 a.m. Thank you very much. Any questions? If not, then we'll move to the next item of business, which is departmental reports. As you can see in the agenda, the reports for the building inspector, police department, and fire department are embedded in the agenda, so they're not giving oral reports. For anybody who would have questions about the building inspector report and the police department reports, best to contact Sharon Lynn directly. Fire department questions, contact Chuck Snyder. With that, there are no board and commission reports identified, so we will go on to committee reports. The first item of business is report on solicitation of committee members. You might recall that we've had vacancies recently from the Planning Commission, Trees and Street Green Infrastructure Committee, Boardwalk and Beach Committee, Environment Committee, Street and Transportation Committee, Animal Issues Committee, and we're trying to form the Wilmington-Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Task Force. We've had an added press release and run in the Cape Gazette recently. We've also had on the city website a blurb about it, and I believe Main Street and the Chamber might have also helped us solicit memberships. I know they did for the Wilmington-Baltimore Streetscape Task Force, and I believe they might have for the others also. So, I know some have ideas for replacing the vacant seats already, but I would still encourage the members of the public to look at the legislative portal, go to meetings, take a look at all the different variety of committees, commissions, and boards that are available for public servitude, and see if you'd like to fill an application, because we do take applications year round, not just at the time that we need new members. With that, we'll move to the next item, which is a report from the Boardwalk and Beach Committee.
My report is embedded, and I'm don't need to expand on that, with the exception of we lost a longtime member, Gary Glass. He did a great job for a long time. He and Brian are relocating, and thank everybody who sent applications in. We welcome that, and we're going to nominate Patricia Davis to replace Gary on the beach or on the Boardwalk and Beach Committee, and she has agreed to the nomination. So we'll be waiting for the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Legree. And I notice in your report you've got some actions requests for the commissioners, so we'll take a look at that. Yes. Also, FYI, I have added the vote on Patricia Davis to become a member of your committee on the meeting of March 23rd to be shared with the tree topic. With that, we'll go to the Environment Committee. Commissioner Byrne.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. We do have an item embedded in the agenda for folks to take a look at. This is a motion that was passed 2 days ago at the meeting of the Environment Committee on March 17th. Let me just go over it quickly, if you will, please. And I'll make a couple of comments on it, certainly then answer questions or host any discussion. And then I'm hopeful that next week at our special meeting, we may be able to have any additional discussion and possibly a vote to approve this as a commission. So the Environment Committee met on March 17th, 2021, and passed the following motion, and therefore recommends that the mayor and commissioners do likewise. And it reads as follows: the city of Rehoboth Beach advertised to all residents that April 5th through 12th is International Dark Sky Week. Excessive use of artificial light, known as light pollution, can have serious environmental consequences for humans, wildlife, and our climate. There's an incredible website at www.darksky.org. It has great information on simple things everyone can do to help. You can start by minimizing the light from your own home at night. Here are a few simple steps everyone can take. Take a few moments to inspect your property for inefficient, poorly installed, and unnecessary outdoor lighting. Second, replace old lighting with dark sky friendly lighting at your home and business. And third, visit a dark sky place or park. And so the point of what the Environment Committee is recommending to all of us is that we would approve this and simply as a body promote the concept of the dark sky movement as an opportunity for people to learn more about it during the week of April 5th to 12th as International Dark Sky Week. It simply would create greater awareness of this movement. It educates the public about it. The slogan, if you go to the website, which is full of just a great deal of educational information, is "Discover the Night." And I listened to Jay's committee earlier in the week, the Beach and Boardwalk Committee, and I know they talked about the slogan of as they talked about the lighting on the Boardwalk and Beach, and that is to light the ground, not the sky. And I just love that and the way Jay's committee discussed it a few days ago. So that's what this is all about. I'm happy to entertain questions or comments.
If there's no comments, I would like to have one comment, and that's just, I think the key there to what you said and what the motion is to create an awareness. I still think we've got a long way to go in educating everybody on what the ramifications are and what it means. But I think you have a good start on it. I have Commissioner Byrne put that also on the agenda for our March 23rd meeting to be able to conduct a vote as you asked for. Commissioner Legree, were you going to offer something? You're muted. You're muted.
Not again. I want to thank Commissioner Byrne. Thanks for all you folks do. It's great. It's just great. And we'll go forward. We're going to go forward, but having the Environment Committee behind it is a great asset. Thanks again.
Thank you. Any others? If not, somebody needs to mute their one of the speakers that's registered to speak. Please mute your audio, please.
Okay, and Mayor, if I could just make another couple of brief, very brief comments while people are muting their speaker. It's a lot of feedback. Thank you. In addition to that motion, the Environment Committee continued to discuss the concept and idea of eliminating single-use plastic products from our environment and our retail establishments here in the city, particularly with a focus on straws. And what's being worked on right now, and it's in collaboration with Main Street, with the Chamber, with support from SOLA 3, is the idea of developing placards that would sit on restaurant tables and eat areas that would simply be an educational reminder of the harm that plastic, and particularly plastic straws, do to our marine environment, our freshwater lake area, and would promote the fact that straws are available on request only. That is the direction that we would like to go, that we are advocating for. There definitely are folks with some medical disabilities that must use a plastic straw. So we're not saying that there should be an entire ban in our restaurants, but they should be available on on request, and that also that restaurants could have alternative straws, biodegradable. And I'm differentiating biodegradable from compostable. They're very different. We do not have a composting situation in the state of Delaware, but biodegradable will do just that. So that's the work that's being done. The chamber is in the process of putting together a very short survey to go out to the restaurants to ask the restaurants if they would be willing to, in a sense, host these table placards in the near future. We don't want to expend any dollars in printing these, putting these together if no one wants them. Although I think, given the fact that it's voluntary, that this is educational, it's a bit like taking some baby steps toward the elimination of plastic products, but I think it's a good step forward. So we're going to get some restaurants on board, and just a shout out to the Solar 3 organization who has offered to support this financially, to Plastic Free Delaware, who is also providing some support and information for us. So I think it's a good move forward. I think it can be a win-win for everyone. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. If there's no questions, we'll go to the next committee report, which is Trees and Green Infrastructure. Commissioner Gay.
Mayor, first of all, I did not, okay, I'm unmuted, yeah.
You're
I
fine.
didn't do a written report, but I appreciate the opportunity to do a short verbal. The first thing is I recently gave an update to our committee at our last meeting of all the tally of what the tree and committee has raised for the commemorative tree program since its inception, which was about 1.5 years ago. It was in the fall of 19. And I'm really pleased that that so many people have wanted to contribute to this program. We've raised $33,935. So just short of $34,000, and it's being used to plant trees in public spaces all over the city. The other thing I'm pleased about is we had gotten about 6,000 just since doing a table display at the Holiday Farmers Market and other activities in the fall, and that alone has raised about 6,000 of money. So that will be put toward new trees in the coming fiscal year. So our budget for commemorative tree expenses in the coming year is about 17,000, which is going to fund a good many trees, both with Lake Avenue Streetscape project. We'll have some. Liz has told me she's had requests for 3 street trees in various locations in the city, and there will be others. We don't know what all of them will be yet. We're still working on that. And the next thing I want to do is just give you a heads up that April 30th is Arbor Day this year. And as usual, there will be a celebration and the planting of a tree and the reading of a proclamation by the mayor. So I hope you're ready for that, Stan. The tree, I just learned today, is going to be an oak that will be planted on the grounds of the school, and there'll be an educational component to that with the 4th and 5th graders. I'll report more on that next month because it's not until April 30th. And then the last thing is we've had a couple of membership changes as well. Bunky Markert, who had been a member of the committee since its inception, has recently become chair of Parks and Shade Tree, so he has resigned. And another member, Terry Eskew, has resigned due to other commitments. And I will be making a recommendation for a new member at our Tuesday meeting. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Sharnowski, you have a question?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner, as these trees are being planted in public ways, will they be a list or some sort of identifying factor that they were planted because of the commemorative tree program?
Yeah, I think that we've been talking about that, and I think the best thing to do is put that on the website. And we're also working on a map, that we'll have a map of the city and we'll show where the trees are. That might take a little bit longer, but we'll at least have the list and a map soon to follow.
That's great that it's part of the plan. Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate all the updates. With that, we'll go to liaison reports, and the liaison can speak, or if the representative is here, preferably they would speak. Susan Gay, Chamber of Commerce.
And Carol is with us today.
All right, Carol.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to give you a brief listing here. First thing is that the Chamber's job fair, we did get state approval for that now. That just came in today. So that will be held on April 16th. It's a one-day event. It is inside the empty space hallway at the Rehoboth Mall. And we have room for 70 employers. We've already filled 45 of those spaces, so that is going to be a go. We also got approval for the indoor awards banquet and installation of our chamber officers for May 6th. It will be right here at Dogfish Head in town. Our first general membership meeting, I've not picked the date. It will be early June, and Dr. Tam will be our first speaker. We continued conversation on everything from the environmental committee and whatever we could do to assist them in that area, parking at the visitor center. And we also worked with the White House Corps. They were asking for some assistance and information, and we've provided that to them. We have hired an intern, which will be at the end of May, so that will be a help to us. And the visitor center is scheduled to open on weekends, maybe a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, towards the end of April. And with that, that's my report.
Thank you very much, Carol. We'll move on to the Historical Society. Commissioner Legree. Unmute. There you go.
The Historical Society has set the date, tentative date for the beach ball, and they're talking about the last week or so of October. Keep aware, and they'll be announcing that once they get the details worked out. For something that's really fun to do, go to the rehobothmuseum.org and click on the videos. And one of the videos you'll see there is called Off the Shelf. And this particular one is about the Brayton and the Marvel Hotel. And the director has a big photograph of the two hotels as they sat close together in the early 1900s. But anyway, short time ago, she got a big box in the mail, and she opens the box in the video, and inside the box is a huge sign that is big. The Marvel Hotel, if you can believe that. The Marvel Hotel is where the back porch is now, and it's just incredible that they I think it was the Marvel family perhaps had that sign. But it's fun to watch the video Off the Shelf and watch Nancy open it. Also those two hotels can be seen with the Golden Age of RB, the videos that Paul Lovett made. The one that talks about the Brayton Hotel is the Village Center, and the one that talks about the Marvel, then they called it the Marvel Boarding House, is called Marvel Boarding House. But those two hotels sit on the north side of Rehoboth Avenue. People would come in on the train. This is 1910. People would come in on the train, hop off the train, catch the carriage to the hotel or the wagon or whatever it was, and that's where they had their vacation. Just great stories. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Legree. As liaison to Main Street, we thank you. With that, we'll move on to the liaison for Cape Henlopen Senior Center is Commissioner Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. The Cape Henlopen Senior Center remains to be open abbreviated hours due to COVID restrictions. They are open Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. currently, and have just within the last 2 weeks have started a limited number, or restarted a limited number of bus trips with seniors, taking them everywhere from needed prescription pickups to needed grocery shopping to shopping at places such as the Dover Mall and Christiana Mall. All of that is being done following very, very strict COVID regulations. However, all is going well and all has been very safe and healthy at our senior center downtown. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. With that, we have no public identified talk about any of the committees, so we'll move on to the next.
Main Street.
I'm sorry, you skipped Main Street, Mayor.
I did. I apologize. Commissioner Sernowski is liaison to Rehoboth Beach Main Street. Go ahead, Ed.
Sure. We've got Greer Meneval, who's the president of the board, and Dan Slagle. So I'll leave it to them and fill in if need be.
Thank you.
Moving forward into spring. Hi everyone. Just a little note. Rehoboth Beach Main Street is working on our latest newsletter for April. Also, we're going to help promote the downtown sidewalk sale through our social media and our website. We're also working towards new banners going along Rehoboth Avenue. So that's in the process right now, in progress. And also, Ed and I are creating a virtual roundtable discussion Tuesday, March 30th.
Very good. Thank you very much, Dan. We appreciate you being on board. Anything else from anybody before I move on? All righty. Thank you very much. The next item of business is actually 3 individual public hearings. You might recall that these 3 topics were started, the initial discussion, I believe, over a year ago, all 3 of them. On January 15th of this year, we adopted a resolution to go to public hearing. We are now finally getting to those public hearings. One of the reasons we go to public hearing, this is not just a simple code amendment. It's actually amending the zoning code, and therefore it's prescribed that we have to publish notice of this meeting in a local paper, as well as conduct a public hearing. Ann Womack, if you are on board, can you just confirm that the public notice for all 3 public hearings in front of us were published timely?
Yes, they have been. They've been posted at City Hall and published in 3 separate newspapers.
Very good. Thank you very much, Ann. And so the process of this is we'll take one public hearing at a time. Glenn will review the contents of the public hearing and the ordinance proposals and amendments, what they mean and the ramifications of them, the best you can, Glenn. And then we will go to commissioner comment if you like, and exhausting that, we'll go to the public for the public hearing and come back to the commissioners if you like before we entertain a motion, if at all today. With that, Glenn, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. The first ordinance before you, commissioners, is, I'll read the title. It's an ordinance to amend Chapter 270, zoning, of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001, by amending Section 270-4 relating to gross floor area. I'll read the synopsis of this ordinance, which says, this ordinance revises the definition of gross floor area, Section 270-4, by providing specific inclusions and exclusions in the definition of gross floor area for single-family and 2-family dwelling units. You'll remember, commissioners, we went through many different iterations of this to figure out the right way to revise the definition of gross floor area so that residential plan reviews could revert to the way that they had been conducted prior to some board adjustment hearings. The final mechanism to do it after a productive meeting with Commissioner Gates, Commissioner Gossett, and the Building and Licensing Department is once before you. Since it is a public hearing, I'm going to take a moment to read those inclusions and exclusions. So this ordinance would revise, again, Section 270-4 by adding a new subsection C. Subsection C would say the following. Gross floor area in a single-family and 2-family dwelling unit is deemed to include 1, the actual floor space of all habitable areas above a finished height at or above 6 foot 6 inches. 2, portions of basements above a finished height at or above 6 feet 6 inches. 3, covered porches, balconies, decks, patios. 4, interior courtyards, atria, walkways, and corridors that are fully enclosed. 5, storage and equipment spaces at a finished height at or above 6 foot 6 inches that are roofed and closed on all sides. 6, covered parking, carport, garage, porte-cochere, and above grade, at or above grade. 7, parking area located below finished grade or finished floor of habitable space. 8, all interior stairwells and stair halls at all levels above grade. 9, elevators, elevator equipment rooms, and elevator shafts. A new subsection D would also be added that would say gross floor area in a single family and two family dwelling unit is deemed to exclude 1, uncovered decks, uncovered balconies, uncovered porches, and uncovered platforms. 2, attics where finished height is less than 6 feet 6 inches with an access hatch and pull down stairs. That's how the ordinance would be amended, Commissioners. Are there any questions?
Glenn, under item C3, my copy says covered porches, balconies, decks, patios, and unimproved areas.
Yeah.
And then also,
Reading from the recent ones.
and then, and I'm looking at version January 15. And then also under section D, which was exclusions, exclusions, D3, there's a 3 there that says areas under overhangs of 2 feet or less.
That's correct, and that's the version that was published. I apologize, I pulled out my January 8th version. So with those additions, that is the ordinance before.
All right.
Thanks for catching that.
Thank you very much. With that, we do have, if you recall, in past discussions, we had diagrams, illustrations of the code made, and they were published in the agendas. They're available if anybody needs to point to them today. With that, I'd like to turn this over to the commissioners before we go to the public hearing portion. Not hearing anything from the commissioners, we'll open the public hearing and go to the members of the public that registered to speak in advance. We'll start off with Dr. Michael Trejos. Are you there?
Yes, no comment on this item.
No comment. Thank you, Doctor. The Papa Johns and Peter Fillett, any one of you want to talk on this topic? Or wait for the underground?
I'm going to wait for the underground.
All right, thank you very much. And with that, we have nobody else identified to talk. Connie Malmberg, are you on yet? Nope, you're not on. Wesley Paulson, are you on yet? Nope, not yet. Okay. Rick Perry on yet? Nope, okay, very good. Just double checking with everybody. With that, there's no other members of the public that want to speak. We'll close the public hearing portion of this topic and go back to the commissioners. Commissioner Edward Shanowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a question, I guess for Mr. Janis. I know that in working through, I think Commissioners Gossett and Gay, working through some of these exclusions and inclusions, have you run by any of these with some of our builders? I guess I'm just trying to see if any of the people that are actually building have looked at this and given their input on any unintended consequences that may come out of it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Actually, the ordinance takes us back to the original interpretation. So the contractors are very much looking forward to getting the fix, in quotations, in place. They're all looking forward to getting back to business as usual.
Okay, so you have gotten some feedback from them? Absolutely,
yes, sir.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I always like to go to our legal representation and building and licensing just for a final comment on that they've reviewed it, they're happy with the version. Glenn, you're okay with?
Yeah, I've been through it, and I think that it was a collaborative process. So, you know, at the end of the day, building and licensing has to be able to apply the ordinance, and Mr. Janis was in the meetings, and so this is a product that I think everybody's put their minds together and they're happy with it.
Very good. And Matthew, you're fine with this version and language?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I believe this brings us back to the original intent, and looking forward to applying it going forward.
Very good. Thank you very much. With that, we'll go to Commissioner Gay.
Yeah, and actually I had an opportunity to talk to Matt just this week of the question that a citizen had and sort of road tested a little bit. And we have to remember it is just the definitions that are changed here to take the code back to the way it used to be vis-a-vis the decks. It doesn't change any other provision. It certainly doesn't change specific code provisions elsewhere. It's just these definitions. And I guess I'll add that we're planning to do a similar list like this for commercial as well, since it seems to be a good approach to, rather than trying to define things that encompass everything, to just list all the elements is much cleaner. And I also want to thank, I guess, Glenn, your office did the drawings, my understanding is, right? I think those will be very valuable for homeowners to understand, you know, what is and is not counted, and to be able to visualize. And I think we definitely should use those going forward.
Thank you, Susan. I'd like you to clarify, because you said we are looking into further examining the commercial, and I want to make sure that people understand that's not we, the commissioners. I believe that's you and Commissioner Gossett. Is that true?
And Matt Janis. Yes, we talked about it. We met to do this ordinance, and that's the next step, I guess is what I meant to say. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the clarification. With that, if there's no further questions from the, go ahead, Commissioner Gossett. Go ahead.
I just want to be clear in this. We talk about going back to or what have you. Just to be clear, to clarify that what we're going back to is to preserve the exterior open decks in residential uses, so they would not be counted in gross floor area, which then would impact the FAR. So just to be clear, that was the goal. And looking at model codes from other cities, it is becoming more and more common to use this inclusion and exclusion list so that it is specifically defined, as opposed to leaving it open to interpretation, not only by the building inspector and building and licensing department, but as the builder also. So this really gives a clear definition. And we hope that this will as Commissioner Gay had mentioned, sort of been road tested a little bit this week and earlier. So I think that this will be much more applicable, hard word, but easy to understand as opposed to easy to say for all those involved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, I wanted to thank Commissioner Gossett and Commissioner Gay. They spent a lot of time with Glenn in building and licensing, fine-tuning this, and your work hopefully pays off very soon. If there's no further comments from the commissioners, of course, the public hearing portion is already closed. Then I would like to entertain a motion. I would like the motion done in the affirmative. We're trying to do motions in the affirmative. And then I'd also like to say that when it comes time to voting, we need a reason for your voting. If you would state your reason for how you selected your yes or no or whatever your vote is, because this is a zoning issue, correct, Glenn?
That is correct. And remember that if one of your fellow commissioners says something that you thought was particularly relevant, you can rely upon their reasons as well when you vote.
Very good, thank you. So with that, I'd like to entertain a motion to amend Chapter 270 of zoning of the Municipal Code of Rehoboth Beach by amending Section 270-4 relating to gross floor area as in front of us today, version January 15, 2021. Would somebody like to give a motion?
I would make the motion, propose the motion as read by the mayor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Gossett and seconded by Commissioner Gay to amend the zoning code by amending Section 270-4 relating to gross floor area, version January 15th as in front of us. We'll be doing a roll call vote on this. And again, need to have you state your reasons. Commissioner Gossett, you're in the top left corner of my screen, so you're the first, please.
Thank you. I vote aye, and reasoning behind this, it is to preserve the exterior open deck in residential uses that would not be counted in the gross floor area, that then would also impact the FAR.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Gay?
I also vote aye, and I think it's a nice clarification of the code in regard to what's included and excluded, and it also helps us get clean up that issue with the decks, as Commissioner Gossett just said.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Byrne?
I vote aye for the reasons previously stated by Commissioners Gossett and Gay.
Thank you. Commissioner Srnowski?
I vote aye for the reasons previously stated by Commissioner Gay and Gossett.
Thank you. Commissioner Pacaluzzi?
I vote aye for the reasons stated by both Commissioners Gossett and Gay.
Thank you. Commissioner Jay Legree, unmute yourself.
I vote aye. For the reason that you gave, Mayor, I believe that we need to move away from Euclidean definitions, and being inclusive is wonderful. And I'd vote aye twice if I could. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the mayor votes aye for the reasons articulated by Commissioners Gossett and Gay. With that, thank you very much. The motion passes unanimously. Thanks again to all those that put the energies in this. It took over a year and a quarter possibly to do this. Commissioner Srnowski, you have a additional question?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask the city solicitor if it's appropriate to vote on this that we just voted on and the next two. It does not specify in the agenda that we're considering or potentially voting on those items that are included in the public hearing. I just want to make sure that we're.
So this is a voting meeting, and we have typically used the word consider if there's a potential vote, but that's not a term of art or any way magical.
Okay.
So I think you can vote today.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure because it's usually more clear that it's being considered.
Right, and I'll admit the mayor asked me to review these, and I didn't catch that portion of it, so we'll do better next time. But it is a voting meeting, and you can vote.
Okay, thank you.
You know, we've had challenges before you by two commissioners now, and I appreciate that, but it could also be done ahead of time such that we could make any corrections if we needed to do that. So please keep that in mind. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to the second public hearing. And again, we already know that it's been published timely. And Glenn, you'll introduce the subject like you did before, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So this ordinance is titled An Ordinance to Amend Chapter 270 Zoning of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware 2001 by amending sections 270-4, 270-21, and 270-35 relating to gross floor area and underground parking. The synopsis of this ordinance is, this ordinance excludes underground parking areas in the commercial districts from gross floor area for purposes of calculating floor area ratio and determining off-street parking space requirements. So in the body of the ordinance, you'll see there's a new definition provided in section 270-4. I will read that definition. Underground parking area is defined as an area containing one or more parking spaces and travel lanes used as a lot or garage for the parking or movement of motor vehicles where no part of the parking structure, except access ways, are above sidewalk level or above the undisturbed ground level of adjacent properties. Then the second portion of the ordinance amends section 270-21 so that the specific commercial uses are called out, and it makes clear within those uses that the parking required for each of those uses, the off-street parking required for each of those uses, is exclusive of underground parking areas. That is the ordinance before you. Are there any questions?
Commissioners, if there's no questions, then we'll go to the public hearing portion of this meeting. Registered in advance to speak at this public hearing on this topic, as well as others, of course, we'll start with Dr. Michael Trejos.
Good afternoon, commissioners, and thank you for allowing me to speak. I know I only have a few minutes with regard to making some comments here. First, I'd like to note that I am in full support of this proposed ordinance and the exclusion of subsurface parking from the FAR. I think this would be a wonderful ordinance in terms of encouraging development in Rehoboth, and I think it is most appropriate. However, as we encourage more development that is likely to happen, we need to take into consideration certain ramifications with regard to the Code of Federal Regulations and federal statute. Mayor, I believe, could Max please put that one slide up, please? I think it is important for us to remember that it was back in 1974 when the city of Rehoboth Beach was placed into the flood insurance program. As such, the city of Rehoboth Beach has a responsibility under Title 44 Code of Federal Regulations 5922, and in particularly Section 8, which basically notates that a commitment from the city of Rehoboth Beach to recognize and duly evaluate flood, mudslide, and or flood-related erosions hazards in all official actions in the areas having special flood, for example, Zone AE, and or flood-related erosions, to take such other official actions reasonably necessary to carry out the objectives of this program. The reason I am stating this is that currently the proposed amendment is basing the determination that FEMA's determination of where the base flood elevation and the EL 12 for the Wilmington Avenue, EL 15 for Baltimore Avenue are indeed valid conservatively and should be adopted. If it is the commission's determination that that is the case, I will support that. I have no problem with supporting that. However, going back to what Commissioner, former Chairman Mullen of the Planning Commission had noted, that times are changing. And as Chairman Mullen had stated, doing core drillings when underground parking was being considered would be appropriate in order to determine where the exact water table is. So again, I will support this amendment as is currently proposed, but with the understanding that the city has an obligation to fulfill its requirements under the Code of Federal Regulations, under 44 CFR 5922. And as such, it may wish to consider in the future, either in a separate amendment to 270, whether or not core drillings should be a requirement somehow, some way, when future subterranean or subsurface parking is going to be implemented. And that's that part of it. Thank you. And then on the very last thing, I think it would be appropriate to note that if I'm not mistaken, it was today, 113 years ago, on March 19th, 1891, the city of Rehoboth Beach was incorporated. So if I'm not mistaken, happy birthday, Rehoboth Beach.
All right.
Yep, he's right.
Thank you, Dr. Trejos. I also want to acknowledge that embedded in the agenda is some presentations that you created especially for this meeting, and we wanted to note that we're thankful for your time and commitment to looking this over and providing that presentation. I guess I would like to assure you that there's an awareness by all the commissioners about what you've presented to us today, even though we didn't show it on the screen. I'd also like to ask, I guess, our city solicitor and Matthew Janis, if anything gave you pause that we should pause on this today versus go through with it and then further consider in the future additional amendments.
Yeah, I'll go first, Mayor. It did not. I mean, I think Dr. Trejos raises some important issues that are worthy of consideration going forward. But as far as this is, I view this as a somewhat more simple amendment, just to recognize that everybody sort of has agreed that underground parking shouldn't count against your off-street parking requirement.
Thank you very much. Matthew, do you have anything you want to add?
Thank you, Mayor. As Glenn stated, there are some special considerations to be had with the underground construction, and obviously we will take Mr. Trejos's comments into light as we get those applications coming forward. We will do our due diligence with respect to flood zones and underground water tables to ensure construction meets standards.
Very good, thank you. We're going to continue with the public hearing portion of this. We've got Alex Papajohn, John Papajohn, and Peter Fillett, who either or all three of you are willing to talk. That's fine with us.
Well, I'm just gonna. This is Alex Papajohn. Good afternoon, commissioners. I just wanted to say I'm very supportive of the amendment, and I certainly hope the commissioners pass it. The city desperately needs more parking. I think that's a problem that's universally recognized. So I'm just very supportive of the amendment. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Does your dad have anything to say, John or Peter Fillett?
Not at this time, sir.
All right, both gentlemen, thank you very much. With that, there's nobody else identified registered to talk on this subject, so we'll close the public hearing portion of this meeting and go back to the commissioners. Any further questions or discussion? If not, then like before, I'd like to entertain a motion in the affirmative to amend Chapter 270 zoning of the Municipal Code of City of Rehoboth Beach by amending sections 270-4, 270-21, and 270-35 relating to gross floor area and underground parking. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Sernowski and a second by Commissioner Gossett to amend sections 270-4, 270-21, and 270-35 relating to gross floor area and underground parking of the Municipal Code of City of Rehoboth Beach. Again, I'm going to do a roll call vote. We need to give our rationale. Of course, a majority yes vote means that it would pass, and a majority no vote means it would not. With that, I'll do the roll call. Commissioner Gay?
I vote aye. I think it's a great incentive for the development in the city that also benefits our environment by reducing artificial pervious surfaces, such as asphalt and concrete. So I think it's a win-win for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Byrne?
I vote aye, based on the comments by Commissioner Gay.
Thank you. Commissioner Sernowski?
I vote aye. I think this is one topic that everyone is in support of. It gets cars underground and not taking up other parking spots around town, and there's no reason to penalize the hotels or other businesses for implementing something we want them to implement and helps us as a city. So I vote aye.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Kaluzzi?
I vote aye for the reasons stated by Commissioner Sosnowski.
Thank you. Commissioner Jay Legree?
I vote aye. It's something we really need. And I also wish to thank Dr. Trejos for his presentation. It's very true. The measurements of water table are certainly a dynamic thing, and not only for underground parking, but for stormwater management in general. We're going to have to start thinking about the water table level going forward in many things. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
I vote aye, based on the fact that this will greatly reduce the bulk and mass of buildings in our commercial zone. But I'd also like to thank and compliment Dr. Trejos for his involvement in this process. I do believe strongly that sea level rise and global warming is an issue that will be facing us sooner than later. And I think that his comments and his suggestions should be looked at and addressed in our Chapter 159 of flood damage reductions. So I'd like to pursue that at some time in the future, in the near future.
Thank you very much. And the mayor votes aye for the reasons articulated by Commissioners Gage, Tranowski, and Gossett. I want to thank you all very much. And with that, the motion passes unanimously. And again, I'd like to advise Dr. Trejos and others that additional conversation might be had in Building and Licensing Department on some of what Dr. Trejos made us aware of. So thank you very much, Dr. Trejos. With that, we'll go to the third public hearing item, and we'll do the same process, and we'll start off with Glenn again, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So the ordinance before you now is titled An Ordinance to Amend Chapter 270 Zoning of the Municipal Code of the City of Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, 2001 by amending Section 270-46.1.2 relating to the location, placement, construction, and maintenance of tower-based wireless communications facilities, non-tower wireless communications facilities, and small wireless communications facilities, and providing for the enforcement of said regulations. The synopsis of this ordinance is, this ordinance amends the Wireless Communications Facilities Ordinance to include additional public notice provisions and aesthetic and health-related safeguards. This is a relatively lengthy ordinance. I'm not going to go into detail into each of the sections, but let me just cover what it generally does. So this ordinance would require proof of compliance with FCC regulations through 3D modeling for wireless facility installations. That would need to be recertified every 4 years or whenever there's a change or modification to the wireless communications facility. It also requires that new wireless facilities notice is posted at the location, and that notice is provided to all owners within 200 feet. So there'd actually be a mailing that goes out to all owners within 200 feet of the new proposed location. With the application, there would need to be drawings to scale, and there would need to be a map of the proposed location and existing locations of wireless facilities, and a second map that, to the extent there are other locations that are anticipated, that map would be provided to the city as well. And the second map would be of a confidential nature and couldn't be shared. Finally, it requires that when an application comes in, that the applicant identify alternative locations that are within a 100-foot radius of the proposed location that might also work for the particular applicant, so the city can consider whether an alternative location makes better sense than the location proposed. That's the ordinance before you. Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the commissioners, or any comments from the commissioners at all before we go to public hearing? If not, we'll go to public hearing. I don't have anybody identified. Dr. Trejos?
Yes.
I don't believe you.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Would you like to?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I wanted to, again, notate that most of you know that I have already made presentations before the Board of Commissioners with regarding the 5G issue. But the main thing I wanted to just touch base with also has to do with the Planning Commission and the CDP. Right now, we're focused predominantly on 5G. But what all of you need to be aware of is that in the telecom, shall we say, research area, 5G is old history. We're already into 6G. And some of you may or may not be aware that 6G is probably going to be rolled out in the next 10 to 15 years. If you all believe or were concerned that 5G towers was going to be a problem, just wait for 6G. It's going to mute anything you're talking about with regard to 5G. And as such, you're looking at significant technical issues, a lot of issues that both the Planning Commission, the CDP, should be addressing from now. Now, why do I make this comment? I have great respect for the Environmental Committee. I had submitted information to the Environmental Committee with regard to 5G. But as one of the members of the Environmental Committee, I think it was Nettie, had made the comment that this matter is way too technical theoretically for that committee, and ironically, they are correct. As part of my information to the Environmental Committee, I had supplied to the Environmental Committee members of residents of the city of Rehoboth Beach who are licensed FCC operators. who have taken examination and licensed themselves under Title 47, Code of Federal Regulations, Parts 13 and 97. Not only those people, of course, I'm licensed under 13, 97, 90, and 95. But the point I'm trying to make is that it may be a consideration for the Board of Commissioners to think about establishing a separate committee just to deal with the future of wireless telecommunications, and membership on that committee should be essentially only to people who are licensed by the Federal Communications Commission, who have the knowledge, expertise, and examination licensure to be able to handle these for the commission, for the Board of Commissioners for the future. It is just food for thought. And again, with regard to 6G and the CDP, all of this is going to have to be thought out very carefully because it's coming down real quick, real fast. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trejos. With that, there's no other members of the public identified or registered to speak on this topic. So we'll close the public hearing portion of this meeting and go back to the commissioners. Are there any further comments or questions?
And Walter speak.
Oh, yes, yes, Walter, go ahead.
Thank you. I haven't had an opportunity to read the final document, and it may not have changed. That's my fault. However, I still have thoughts that the infrastructure, none of it should be on the ocean side of the boardwalk. It should just not be permitted at all. It should have to be on the landward side. And I have a problem with restricted maps, because anytime you want to restrict something, the public is also restricted. And I don't believe that the restricted maps should matter. I think the engineering is solid enough, but I think when it locks it out, public gets locked out also. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. Anybody else from the public? If not, I'm going to again close the public hearing portion of this meeting. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I have a question about that sort of goes beyond this ordinance, but it caught my eye when I was reading through it yesterday, and that is, and it's partly a question for Glenn and partly a question for Sharon. On the notice required, I'm in section 4 at about line 105, and it talks about.
Let us get there. Let us get there.
Okay. Section 4, line 105.
Go ahead.
Okay, where it talks about sending via first-class mail notice to property owners within 200 feet. First of all, is first-class mail still the sort of legal standard, Glenn, for notification?
I don't know a better way to do it other than if we had everybody's email addresses and you could do, I mean, you know, it's still a standardized, accepted means of notice, but yeah, of course, I'd prefer something that was more instantaneous.
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason I bring it up, in addition to the fact that first-class mail is just becoming, you know, worse and worse every day, it seems like. But I also wonder, and this is a question for Sharon, and also maybe something we can pursue going forward and outside this meeting, and certainly outside this ordinance, and that is, you know, what mechanisms can we put in place for notifying people? I know that those who have given us their email addresses, it's always hard to get them or whatever, but just, you know, are there multiple ways we can notify people? What are the most efficient ways? Maybe when there's a new communications person, we could look at kind of putting that, coming out with a system and then putting it out there for people to contribute to, so that we have good information for people.
Yeah, so Commissioner, first-class mail is the means and method that we use still today, notifying folks for board adjustment meetings, any information that's pertinent that we put out. So we just sent out the parking permit letters. Many of you may have received them. Not very reliable lately, but hopefully improving. The problem, as you said, is that many don't want to, you know, give them out or disclose them to the city. However, we have more and more email addresses, but we don't want to miss anyone. So at least for right now, first-class mail is the best.
The other thing I can add, I guess, is at least for the non-tower and for the small wireless facilities, there will be a posting at the location. So like we do with Board of Adjustment applications, a sign will be posted. So there's one more mechanism for people to find out.
Okay, yeah, that helps. That helps. Okay, thanks. I just thought I'd mention it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the commissioners? If not, I'd like to remind everybody that I believe this was also in discussion for a year. The version we're looking at to approve is dated January 9th, 2021, so it's been around a while. I would like a motion in the affirmative to amend Chapter 270 of the zoning code by amending Section 270-46.1.2 relating to the location, placement, construction, and maintenance of tower-based wireless communications facilities, non-tower wireless communications facilities, and small wireless communications facilities, and providing for the enforcement of said regulations. Do I have a motion?
I move adoption.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Byrne and a second by Commissioner Jay Legree to adopt the ordinance amending Section 270-46.1.2, et cetera, as I read earlier. Can I abbreviate that instead of reading?
That's fine, yes.
Okay, thank you. Again, we'll have a roll call vote. And again, this is in the zoning code. And so we need a rationale for making your decision on your vote. We're going to start with Commissioner Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. I vote aye in support of this. It will provide greater transparency to the public than we currently have. It'll certainly provide some greater public health and public safeguards than we currently have. The Environment Committee worked long and hard, and while many of my committee members would say that this is not ideal, they would all agree that it's a step forward from where we've been. And let me also thank Dr. Trejos for his input, not only today, but for the previous months. He's been a great help to all of us that do not have the technical background to be able to deal in detail with this information. So I'm pleased to support this and pleased that it's moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Stranowski?
I vote aye for the reasons stated by Commissioner Byrne. I also want to thank Dr. Trejos, has been very helpful, but there are other members of the Environmental Committee that are residents here in Rehoboth that played an integral part of pushing this forward. And I thank the city staff for working with those individuals to come with what I think is a much better place than we were a few months ago. So thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Calusi?
I vote aye for the reasons stated by Commissioner Byrne.
Thank you. Commissioner Jay Legree?
I vote aye. 270-46 is woefully inadequate. And the work that Commissioner Byrne and the Environment Committee has done is just great. They've made it a little better, but we're going to be dealing with this in coming years. And I also want to give a shout out to Heather Metz, who is on Commissioner Byrne's committee. You guys did a lot of great work, and I applaud you for it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
I vote aye, as this really does provide additional public notice provisions and aesthetic and health-related safeguards to the community. But I agree, it's the first step of a very long road as this technology progresses much quicker than we are able to move. And I think we need to be ahead of it as much as we can be in the next steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gay?
Yes, yeah, and I agree with everything that was said by Commissioners Legree and Byrne and Gossett just now. And I also want to thank the Environment Committee for because I don't think we would have had this without their efforts. I also want to thank Dr. Trejos for his involvement in it. That kind of expertise is very important as we go forward as well.
Very good. And the chair votes aye for the reasons articulated by Commissioner Byrne, Gossett, and Gay, and Legree. I'd also, there's plenty of thanks to go around. Thank you again, Dr. Trejos, for working with us, but also with the Environment Committee. Commissioner Byrne, take back to your committee a thanks for all the committee's involvement in this, as well as individual assistance and guidance from Heather Metz. I'd also like to give a shout out of thanks to Kevin Williams, Sharon Lynn, Glenn Mendalis, and others that worked with our consultant, the Cohen Group, to help massage this and make it the best we could today. With that, the vote is unanimous, yes, and the amendments are adopted. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to our first item of old business. Consider appointment of Jim Ellison to fill a vacant seat for an unexpired term on the Planning Commission. If you recall at the previous meeting, I nominated Jim. I thought he was a good fit. He's a retired architect. He's been very involved in the city for the past 15, 20 years, served on the Architectural Review Board Task Force as well as some other committees, serves on a State Historical Preservation Committee, I believe as chair. I can't remember all the details, but I think he's a good fit. He also has the thumbs up from Jeffrey, chair of the Planning Commission. With that, is there any further comment or discussion? If not, I'd like a motion to appoint Jim Ellison for the unexpired term of Joyce Lazier on the Planning Commission.
So moved.
Move, Mayor.
We have a motion by Pat Caluzzi and a second by Commissioner Jay Legree to appoint Jim Ellison to the unexpired term of Joyce Lazier on the Planning Commission. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. And it looks like Jim is appointed unanimously. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go to the next item of old business, which is consider approval of an agreement between the City of Rehoboth Beach and Oyster House Village, a new proposed land development plan in Sussex County for the city to provide water service to the project. If you recall, this was introduced at our previous meeting, and the support document with the agreement is embedded in last agenda as well as this agenda. I'm turning it over to our city manager to further review and allow for any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mayor. I turn it over to the Director of Public Works for his good work on this.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, City Manager. As we discussed at the workshop meeting, the new development that's going in off Oyster House Road made a minor change to the outline of the facility after Commissioner Gossett's question last meeting about the actual parcel number. The actual parcel that is impacted is only this portion of it. It did not include this second parcel up here. So just adjusted that map a little bit so you could get a better idea exactly where it is. Again, there's our water service set up for that area. There's the area of development. So just asking the board to authorize the city to enter an agreement with the LLC for us to provide their water service.
Any questions from the commissioners? I can't see you on screen when there's a shared document. Anything? No? With that, I would entertain a motion to authorize the city to enter an agreement with Oyster House Village Development, the version February 26th in front of us.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Srnowski and a second by Commissioner Byrne to authorize the city to enter an agreement on water with Oyster House Village Development. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those not in favor signify by saying nay. And the motion is approved unanimously. Thank you very much. Moving right along. Next bit of old business is consider adoption of a resolution proposing that a public hearing be held on the subject of amending the city code, sections 230-3, special events, 230-12, expressive activity, 236-8, subdivision approval procedure, 236-9, partitioning, 236-10, minor subdivision, 236-12, major subdivision, 236-32, site plan review, 253-36, appeal to Parks and Shade Tree Commission, 270-28B, administrative variance, 270-73, Board of Adjustment application, and 270-82, building permit relating to the filing of city applications in a digital format. If you recall, I brought this in front of you before. We have an ordinance in front of us. If you recall, I mentioned that only the permit of compliance application to be submitted by restaurants wanting to serve alcohol, only they currently are required by code to provide digital copies of their submissions in addition to the hard copy. I put this on because I believe it will lead to more transparency, give us an opportunity to put even more documents available as support documents online, and it'll ease the load on the city staff to keep them from having to scan and then embed the scanned items in there. The version we're looking at is dated March 8th. Do you want to say anything further, Glenn?
Mayor, I'll just mention that it is just the resolution that's being considered today. The resolution going to public hearing. You can certainly discuss the ordinance, but resolution is what's being considered for adoption. As the mayor said, there's several different applications. Literally all the applications that will be filed with the city will be required to be digital. Only a few of those are found in the zoning code, but that's what's forcing this to go to a public hearing rather than just moving forward with adoption of it now or at some other meeting. That's all I have, Mayor. I guess I should mention that Commissioner Gay, I think, raised two things last time. One was she asked a question about whether all the documents that are associated with an application need to be digital. The answer to that is yes. I didn't feel the need to include it in the ordinance unless you all direct me to do so. I looked back at the permanent compliance applications we've received, and it doesn't specifically say everything must be in digital format, yet we've been getting everything in digital format. So the other question that the commissioner asked is whether timelines that are established in the code are triggered. You know, if a paper copy comes in and then 3 days later the digital copy comes in, when do the timelines get triggered? And my response to her was when the application is perfected, that is when it's complete, when we have everything in digital form. So that's also not included in the permanent compliance language, and we haven't found it to be a problem. So I didn't include it in the current version of the ordinance either. But again, if you all feel that those are things that really should be included, I'm happy to amend it and include them.
Well, Glenn, I think the intention is both for those is exactly as you stated. And I would say that I don't believe that we need to codify that will be the practice. You know, now obviously if we run into a problem and building licensing comes back to us, then we can certainly add that to the code. Are there any questions or comments?
Just, I know, Mayor, you and I were the ones that redesigned the permit of compliance about 2 years ago and put the electronic submission of information in that as sort of a test case to see just how effective this would be. And I don't believe we've had any real issues, challenges with it. Now, Mr. Janis, maybe if he's still on the line, could confirm or deny that in aspects of whether those additional aspects of the timelines and or the submission dates and everything in electronic aspects that Mayor or Commissioner Gay brought forward should be addressed, or that the policy in place is working okay.
Matthew,
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, Mr. Mayor? I stepped away for a minute. I do apologize.
That's all right. That's all right. Commissioner Gossett, repeat your question, please.
My question was, Mr. Janice, I know the permanent compliance has had electronic submission previously for about 1.5 to 2 years. And there was questions about the deadline of submitting paperwork, or when was the official acceptance of paperwork? And also, does everything need to be sent in electronically? And just your experience with the permanent compliance, whether those two aspects that Commissioner Gay brought forward, whether they need to be codified, or a simple policy and procedure is in place that notifies the applicants of what is required of them.
So I think this begins the discussion of the broader overall with the submittal of, permit applications and everything, which is where eventually I would like to take my department in general. But I believe a codification might satisfy and give, more regulation to it. But and in the same sense, I think just a standard operating procedure might cover it as well.
So Matt, Mr. Janice, so they have a version of an ordinance before them to go to public hearing that would require everything to go to digital submissions. And the questions, and so the two questions were raised by Commissioner Gay, and I responded by saying that we hadn't found this to be a problem in permanent compliances, which are currently required to have digital submissions. And Commissioner Gossett is asking if these two items, which I'm going to raise with you, if these two items if you notice them to be a problem in the context of permanent compliance applications. First is, do people generally understand that their application isn't complete until everything is in digitally, or have you found that some people think that their application is complete and timelines start when the paper copy is accepted if they haven't got the digital copy in yet? That was the first one. The other is, have you found that any applicants feel as though, a portion of their application should be in digital form, but other maybe supporting pieces don't need to be in digital form, because the intent is that everything be provided in digital form?
Thank you for catching me up, Mr. Mendelis, and I do apologize for having to step away. Most of the times, the submissions are generally complete. If not, obviously we push back. Requiring them to submit them electronically, I don't think it complicates the issue at all, and I haven't found any problems with them being able to submit those documents electronically. No one has ever pushed back in any instance that I can recall, and perhaps City Secretary Ms. Womack could speak a little bit more to that if necessary, but I don't recall ever a time that we had major pushback or any complication requiring those documents. And then I'm sorry, Mr. Mendelis, the second question was?
Just whether there was any, I guess the broader question is, we've been accepting permanent compliances in digital format. It's the only applications that we require to be in digital format under the current ordinance. Are there any particular items that you or maybe Ms. Womack have noticed that, time and time again, it comes up in connection with the filing of permanent compliance applications that we should be addressing in this ordinance now that we're making other things required in digital format?
Thank you. I do not believe we ran into specific problems, and really it's applicant dependent most of the times, whether they submit this or submit that, and each instance I don't think can be related to the other. Maybe some clarification. I don't even think the clarification is quite the word for the necessary submitted documentation. People sometimes are confused in the process, and they don't necessarily know exactly what to submit. But after we have the conversation with them and help them through the process, they learn better, and if they had a second go around, they're much better at that point, having that second round of application.
Thank you. Both of you asked Ann if she had any input. Ann, are you there?
Yes, I am, Mayor.
Any comments?
Generally, when the permitted compliance applications are submitted to me, I speak with the applicants prior to the submittal and ask them to submit all documents at one time, so they do not come in as piecemeal. And I've not had a problem with applicants doing that. Also, they realize that when they provide the hard copies is actually when that starts the clock. The digital format has been basically the same as the hard copies. I require the applications and all supporting documents that they submit as hard copies.
Thank you, Ann. Yeah, I see this as very simple. Maybe we're overcomplicating it, but I think that if there's any shortcomings, they can be taken care of in a standard operating procedure, as Matt indicated he would. Are there any other questions?
Mayor, I don't disagree with you on that. I'm sorry, I don't disagree with you on that, but we're going from one application electronically to 11. So it's just going to be a great change, and I don't doubt that the staff can be competent of that and handling that, but it's just a big change, that's all. And I think to be prepared for that.
Change for the better, I believe. With that, we'll entertain a motion to, yeah.
I already have started with the Board of Adjustment and the Planning Commission, and I believe Parks and Shade Tree. I've already informed them, the applicants, that they will be submitting electronically. I have not received any type of pushback from it. I don't believe that it's going to be any different than the submittals for the permitted compliance, because basically I have the same procedure that I follow as the permitted compliance.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Commissioner Srnowski?
Mayor, I was going to move, but I'll wait if there's still discussion.
Well, that's all right. What we need is a motion to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing on 16th of April, 2021 at 2:00 p.m. And let me ask Ann, is that enough time to publish? I don't know what your time frame is. April 16th for a public hearing? Are you calculating, Ann? Does that give her enough time, Glenn?
It certainly does, yes.
It does, okay. We're good to go then. So we get a motion to adopt a resolution setting a public hearing in this matter for 16th of April, 2021 at 2:00 p.m. Do I have a motion, Ed?
So moved, yes.
Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Srnowski and a second by Commissioner Gay to adopt the resolution before us, setting a public hearing in this matter for 16th of April, 2021 at 2:00 p.m. All those in favor of adopting the resolution as noted, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say nay. And the motion is carried unanimously with a public hearing to be set on the 16th of April as noted. Thank you very much. With that, we will go to the next item of old business. Consider adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 92, Automobiles, Vehicles, and Traffic of the City Code by amending sections 92-69 and 92-73 relating to designating the Grove Park parking lot as a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces and a time limitation to be designated between 3 and 12 hours. If you recall, this is not a zoning issue, so we can vote on it today without a public hearing. Of course, public is allowed to talk. Nobody, maybe Walters wants to talk, but nobody else signed up to talk on it. If you recall, when this first came to us, it was a 12-hour zone parking. At the subsequent meeting, we talked about it becoming a 3-hour zone. We have 2 ordinances in front of us. Really, the way this works, we can pick anything between 3 and 12 hours if we wanted to, but there are 2 ordinances in front of us. With that, I'd like to go to discussion of the commissioners.
Mayor, I think
Go ahead, Commissioner Calusi.
I think the turnover is important, and I would support definitely less than 12 hours, and I'd be happy with 3 hours. So that would be my vote.
Thank you. Anybody else? Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Yeah, my thoughts are the same as Commissioner Calusi's. But first of all, I'm very supportive of the concept and the work that Commissioner Gossett has previously done to get us to this point. And I think turnover on the western end of our city is more important than in some other neighborhoods, particularly closer to the beach. I think turnover of 3 or 4 hour parking better meets the needs of the folks that are looking for parking in the Grove Park Canal area. So I'm supportive of the 3-hour idea.
Very good, thank you. I was remiss, let me read the synopsis and then we'll get to the rest of the commissioners. Synopsis says, this ordinance establishes a Grove Park parking lot as a 3-hour or a 12-hour parking meter zone, $2 per hour spaces with certain exceptions for the Farmers Market, Rehoboth Beach Museum, Chamber of Commerce Visitor Center, and Main Street. If you recall in here, there's an allowance where a certain allotment of spaces for those organizations that are within that area will have free parking, as well as a program to have a dash parking permit system to allow additional parking in there by those agencies. Let's go to Commissioner Chernowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm in general agreement with the concept, and I agree with Commissioner Calusi on the time frame. I think 3 hours is probably a good amount. I guess I have a couple questions for Commissioner Gossett and Commissioner Legree. One, I think I've heard that the museum may have some concerns about this. And I believe my understanding was they sent a letter from the board, but I don't think I've seen a letter. So I don't know if one was sent or I just missed it. And so I wanted to ask if Commissioner Gossett has any input from them, or Commissioner Legree as the liaison. And also, are we planning on putting a fixed sign that would leave one reserved spot for each of those entities, or just using the hang tags?
The plan is, if I can I just received a very quick email back from the president of the Historical Society stating that the discussion that I had with Nancy Alexander providing dash passes for them for specific times of the day or what have you, for them, giving them a number of passes, probably anywhere from 4 to 6, just depending on their needs for staffing. And then also special events that the park would be, we term bag the meter, so that the entire parking lot would be available for them for special events for whatever they host there. So that I just received, again, an email back from the president that his response seems reasonable to me. And I don't think that there will be any additional needs. It is not, the only specific spaces that will be signed and reserved are 3 spaces for the visitor center and they will be specifically marked with a sign relating the time of day that the visitor center is open. The Main Street and the staff members for the visitor center will just have a dash pass that will provide them with non-revenue parking at that point. So that is the way it's set up currently.
Okay,
Again, once it gets into operation, we may tweak it a bit, but that is the plan going in.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Gaza, thank you for all the hard work you've put on this project.
Sure.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Gossett, you're next.
Yes, I just wanted to comment on, and we've got some citizen comment about doing a restricted or 3-hour permit. The only thing I would caution us on looking back at a history and trying to learn from our history, the major number of complaints that we had from parking in the downtown area was limiting parking to 3 or 4 hours. That it was trying to push turnover or encourage turnover of parking for retail, but that didn't seem to be the case. That people were very frustrated about having to run back and either put more quarters in the meter because they're not moving their car, or they felt they were compelled to move their car. So I would just caution us to think again about limiting it to a 3 or 4 hour limit, just based on the friendliness, if you will, and ease of accommodating our visitors to the city. I think the change from a metered lot or from a free lot to a metered lot is a large change to deal with in the first place. And again, just looking back at history of the issues that we faced with the 4-hour maximum parking in the downtown area, just think about that in moving forward and making this decision.
Thank you. Commissioner Gay?
Yes, well, first of all, I want to thank Commissioner Gossett for not only his hard work on this, but getting it done so efficiently. I think it only took like 3 meetings, and that's great. Much needed. And I have to say, when I first, and several people actually suggested to me, several citizens before we even had our first discussion suggested to me that it be less than 12 hours. And my response to them was, well, we can't do that. It's 12 hours citywide. And so I'm actually glad that the discussion has gone in that direction, because I always liked, I understand we had some issues within the business community, and that's why we changed it. But I always liked the idea of the turnover. And I think what came out of our last discussion was that this would be the best place to have it, because it's segmented from the rest of the commercial parking in a way. It's kind of its own thing. Therefore, it wouldn't matter if it wasn't consistent with the rest of the city, although I guess that's a question I might ask Carol, because I know that she's very keen on distinct messaging and consistent messaging. On balance, I think I am in favor of it unless it turns out to be a logistical problem, I guess.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner LeGree?
Hi, I attended the board meeting for the Historical Society and was there when they discussed the parking at the Grove lot. And I believe the dash passes that and I also commend Commissioner Gossett for handling that, but the dash passes, I believe, are going to be quite adequate for them. And to echo Commissioner Gay, it's a different type of a parking lot. And for the Main Street folks and for the Historical Society Museum, the turnover is quicker, and they'll do just fine, I believe, with a shorter time limit. I worry a little bit about the folks who bring their kayaks and spend a few hours on the canal, but there may be ways to handle that too. And so I think you've done a great job, and I think they're all for sure the Historical Society. I believe Nancy and the rest of the board members are pleased with the outcome, and they'll be able to serve the patrons quite handily. That'll work well. And thank you for what you've done, Patrick.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Coluzzi.
Yes. just to echo what Commissioner Gay and Legree have said, that this really, the parking lot is different. It's different from downtown. I think it is appropriate to have a turnover there for, lots of reasons that have already been mentioned. So I still am in favor of that. And the good news is it doesn't take much to change it if we need to. Maybe signage would have to be changed, perhaps, but that's it as far as the way our system works. That's dynamic, and Evan can change it at any time, or whoever is responsible for that. So yes, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, I just wanted to state, I am also in support of a 3-hour time frame on there, but I just wanted to have all the information at the table so that we realize, again, what history is shared with us and what we experience elsewhere. And I agree, it's a different section of time. There are different needs, different uses for that. There's, at this time, no strong retail at that end of town. So it could be adjusted in future years. But again, I just would like to bring all the data to the table so that we're aware of what we're dealing with. Thank you.
I appreciate that, Patrick, the different perspectives on it. Commissioner Sernowski?
Yeah, I just, on that note, Mayor, and Patrick, I'm glad you brought that up. When we changed to 12 hours, it was just a little over a year ago. And in my mind, it was a trial to see if it worked and if the businesses would really want it as much as they voiced having 12-hour parking or anything more than 3 or 4, which seemed incredibly counterintuitive to me for turnover. But the businesses, really wanted it. So we went in that direction. Since that's happened, we've not had any type of normalcy in our downtown area. So in my mind, we're still, the 12-hour parking around the city is still on trial for me until we have a normal season. And I agree that that specific lot is segregated from the rest of Rehoboth Avenue and where retail shops are. So I think it is different enough that it warrants it being different than what we've done throughout the city. But I would like to hear Carol's opinion because as Commissioner Gay said, she's always very keen on consistency and keeping it simple and easy. So I would like to hear from her if she's available.
I'll call on Carol after I speak. Aside from the visitors that come to the visitor center, Main Street, and the museum, which are accommodated in this ordinance, that provided dedicated parking spaces, I believe the primary function of that parking lot is to allow users to come and use the park, whether it's the tot lot, the playground, the pavilions, etc. And personally, I'd like it to be free, but we know because of the abusers, I'll call them, that free doesn't really work. And it doesn't work if it's free and long-term parking is available. So I'm amenable to a 3-hour turnaround. I believe the turnaround is very important. And again, that I believe will help accommodate the users of our park. With that, Carol, are you still online?
Yes, I am, Mayor. I'd say 2 things. One is, Ed said it right. I do think consistency is very important. We never had more complaints about anything regarding parking than when we tried to do the 3-hour through town. It was the #1 complaint. We never saw anything like that. My thought is, if you put in meters that you can go more than 3 hours, if they only want to be there 3 hours, they're there 3 hours. If they want to pay for more, they can. I just think the thing on the positive side would be, if you think that people are going to park there and then walk to the beach, well, 3 hours is going to keep them from doing that. That's for sure. But if you think that someone's going to go there and have a picnic, play in the park, that type of thing, go in some event type of thing in the museum, or some activity that they're spending at the visitor center, I think that becomes an issue.
You dropped off, Carol. Did you finish?
No, I don't think so.
Carolyn, you dropped off. If you come back on, speak up. You know, for me, I look at the type of person that would park there beyond 3 hours. Somebody that might want to kayak to Lewis or Dewey Beach and back or something might likely take over 3 hours. Somebody wants to go to the theater and then dinner might take over 3 hours. I can name a lot that would take 3 hours or more. So I'm still resolved that even with the complexities of possibly intermixing a 12-hour area with a 3-hour, I believe that we can do it and do it successfully. Are there any other comments by the commissioners? If not, I would entertain a motion. We have an ordinance in front of us to amend Chapter 92 of the City Code of Rehoboth Beach, amending sections 92-69 and 92-73 relating to designated Grove Park parking lot as a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces. And your motion needs to indicate a maximum or what the meter maximum would be, either 3 hours or 12 hours or something in between. Glenn, is there any further refinements?
That's it.
So we would entertain the motion.
Public comment?
Sorry, yes, yes, sir, Walter. Sorry, I forgot you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, that's okay. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. First of all, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor, and I won't get into the 3 hours and 12 hours because I think everybody's got a lot of thoughts in here that are very good. I think the egg might change people's mind if somebody said it's no retail down that end of the street, because the egg, which was tenuous when it was approved, has sure brought people to town early into parking spaces that were not being used, and I think that works fine. So, but I have a problem about the spaces that are going to be available, because I think hanging tags, if you have them here, I think it's going to get filled when people have a meeting, albeit you've been very clear that the meetings are very few. But I think that City Hall, City Manager's office, I've been on Lake Avenue and so many places to find all these tags, like 8.5 by 11s or something like that, sitting on the dashes of people's cars, and I've even taken pictures of them out of frustration. I just threw them away. The amount of parking permits that the city issues to people because the city doesn't have enough parking spaces for their own employees. So we have what I think is going to end up with confusion. I think this is going to pass. I think it feels good. But very seldom when things don't work well are they taken down. We have a very expensive sign program put in, and one of the signs that sits at the entrance, the street between City Hall and the firehouse, even says metered parking. Well, that's fine, but you can't read it, especially at night. And when it is in effect, it's not done well enough. And I think this is going to be one more confusing thing. It'll pass, but I think it should be put in for a year, and it should be reviewed to see how well it works. But I don't think that the hanging tags should be passed out by like water, that the museum or anybody else, if they're having a meeting, can pass out 2, 5, or 10 tags, because it will leave no room for anybody else. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Walter. Appreciate it. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adopt or to amend the Chapter 92, Sections 9269, 9273, relating to designating Grove Park parking lot as a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces, and then insert your maximum meter time.
Mayor, I'll make that motion to amend Chapter 92, the Municipal Code of City of Rehoboth Beach, by amending sections 92-69 and 92-73 relating to designating the Grove Park parking lot as a meter zone with $2 per hour parking spaces for a time limit of 3 hours.
Second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Cluzzi and a second by Commissioner Byrne to amend Chapter 92 as read, and instituting a maximum of 3 hour parking limit in that parking lot. And this, we're working from the March 8th version of the code. With that, I'll do a roll call vote. We'll start with Commissioner Srnowski.
I vote yes for several reasons. One, the city needs revenue, and I think it's important that we found another source of that. And I believe it'll create more turnover in that area. Cars can sit for quite a long period of time.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett, and we do not, this is not a zoning issue, so your rationale is not needed, but I'm sure it's welcome. Commissioner Gossett?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Legree?
Aye.
Commissioner Gay?
Aye.
Commissioner Byrne?
Aye.
Commissioner Coluzzi?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The motion is unanimously carried, establishing meter zone, et cetera, in the Grove Park parking lot. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mayor, I am
with-
going to recuse from the next item. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Commissioner. The next bit of old business is consider adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 148 Farmers Market of the City Code by amending sections 148-2, 148-9, and 148-18 relating to the definition of season, the number of allowable vendors, and the permit fee. With that, there's a proposal draft ordinance embedded in the agenda. If you recall, we talked about this at our last meeting. We're working from the version dated March 12th. And the main changes there are it extends the market season by one additional day to reflect common practice. It increases the number of vendors from 28 to 40, which somewhat reflects past increase in the vendors, even though it was against the code. And then third, this would increase the permit fee from $100 to $500. Is there any discussion among the commissioners before we go to the public? And remember, we do have, we'll have us all remember that some of the one piece of correspondence on this topic was from Jeffrey Good, who lives across the street from the park. Commissioners, any discussion? Glenn?
I'll just mention, Mayor, because Commissioner Gossett had asked about the insurance requirements, and I did look at them, and I do find them to be adequate as.
Thank you. Commissioner Gossett, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I've enjoyed the farmers market for quite a number of years. And I think this is, as I'd mentioned before, I think this is kind of coming, asking forgiveness as opposed to permission. The request was for 38, an increase to 38, which is what they're actually using right now. We've gone to 40. I'm not quite sure why we're extending it to 40 from the requested 38. I would propose that we meet their request of 38. We have added the winter market, which has been going on for quite some time, which is well attended and a nice time to see people again during the winter before it kind of closes down or the snowbirds get out of here. And we've increased the fee to $500, which I think is a minimal increase in the sense of what the city invests in the market for cleanup and patrol. Police patrols and parking extensions and that type of thing. But I also think that, and I am in support of those changes, but, the code was written 14 years ago. And so what we're doing today as to what the market was originally envisioned as are kind of different. And I would just think that we need to also investigate the code a little bit further so that what is happening today, which I'm not against it all, and I think that the farmers market is a wonderful attraction and asset to the city, but what is happening at the farmers market is not what reflected in the code. So I would just say that I think we should need to go further and maybe sit down with the representatives from the farmer market, from the board of the farmers market, to kind of update things as to describing the type of vendors that are permitted and what type of products are for sale. If an annual report is still really necessary, or was it ever subscribed to? And the permit process, is it, in conflict with any of our rules for our rules for competitive bidding at the present time? So again, it's cleaning up the code. And I think we need to go farther than what is proposed, but I don't want to stop what we have proposed today. I would certainly support what is before us. Although I do think we should consider the request of 38 versus 40. But again, I just think we need to go forward to actually reflect in the code what is actually happening in the product that the farmers market is producing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. That kind of reflects some of your comment at the previous meeting. If you recall, I mentioned that likely we might want to do this in 2 steps. Take care of this today, and then have you bring up some of your other concerns into the future, and an adequate time in front of next year's farmers market, so that we can all be apprised of any changes far enough in advance. Commissioner Byrne?
Yeah, I'm certainly in support of what's in front of us. I like the idea of the 2 stages over an appropriate period of time. I am supportive of this, however, right now, because I think that the board of directors for the farmers market, along with their vendors, needs to be able to adequately plan. I have no problem going back to the 38 that was requested, and to support the request. I'm pleased that the board in our previous discussion was very willing to go to a $500 fee. I think that's really minimal for what happens there for the entire season. It's an incredibly popular event with our local residents, and with probably over the course of the season, thousands and thousands of visitors. And so I think it's supporting what has generally been common practice, and I'm highly favorable about this. But again, the 38 is fine with me. There's no reason to go beyond what the request was. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Srnowski?
Sure. I want to say that I'm in support of this. I agree doing it in 2 stages is appropriate. Related to the 38 versus 40, in the conversation we had with the farmers market at our last meeting, they disclosed that they can accommodate up to 40 and have had 40. And so I support keeping it at 40. Otherwise, we're just setting them up to, ask for forgiveness rather than permission. Again, I think we should just approve what they can accommodate, knowing that it has grown over the years, and is a great asset to the city. So, I agree that, the $500 increase to 500 for this year is although minimal, a substantial increase for them. And, as we do an extensive look at all fees this coming year, which the city manager was charged with, we can evaluate that again, before the next season. But again, the board members said that they can accommodate and have had 40, and I think we should just leave it at that. It's a great asset for the city and brings a lot of people into our town that pay to park, that go to lunch afterwards. So I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Legree?
We heard from one of the residents, and I know this person to be stable and trustworthy and reliable, and he was having problems with traffic and parking and people blocking his driveway. And I sympathize with that. And I think we need to look at enforcement much more acutely than we have in the past. The traffic in that area is troublesome for me. It's in one of the most difficult places in town, and we need to look carefully at that. I remember asking the Sandy and others if they would like to be larger or smaller, and they all thought that was about right. If you have 100 people or 70 people or whatever, there's too much competition and everybody gets a smaller share. They didn't want to go to another location, I gathered from my questions, because this is such a phenomenal location. Let's keep it at 38, and then let's check and make sure they don't go to 40. It's our problem. We need to not let that happen. And I think, and we need to watch the traffic, and we need to keep people from parking in your driveway and on your lawn and at the street corner on the yellow curb. And I've been there and I've tried to find a parking spot and you can't. And I said at the meeting, I had to go cheat at Rise Up, and that happens. I'm sure that happens. Parking is difficult. So I don't want to go past 38. And yeah. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? I will say that I will support up to 38. I will not vote any more. They asked for 38. I did hear through the grapevine that they'd be happy with even fewer, but of course none of us asked that question. And so that's not out there. So 38 I think is fine. Just because they can accommodate 40 or 42 or 46 doesn't mean that we should do it. I again want to articulate my concern about damage to trees. When I've asked the city about damage to trees, they said, well, of course there's damage to the tree roots, but it's done. And that to me is not a sufficient answer for us to be contemplating, because it doesn't mean that we should continue it and let it expand and continue to damage the trees to the point where the roots are compacted to the point where they start to die off on us. As far as the three components here, the $500 fee I think is justified because we have a part in managing the activity there and dealing with the trash collection, etc. With the 38, I just indicated I'd be happier with 35 to 38. And the additional day, again, mirrors what they've been doing outside of the code for the while, and I'm willing to let them do that. But shame on us, shame on them for having violated the code for so many years. I think it's a great, fantastic, one of the best things to come along since I've been here, because everybody loves it, absolutely. But you know, we all have rules to follow, and reflecting and changing the rule, I think, is appropriate, as I talked. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, I am glad you brought that up about the trees, because certainly members of my committee have commented on that and expressed concern, and we've talked to Liz Lindo about it as well. And I think part of the issue there is the number of cars that come in per vendor, because I think the code may say one, but my understanding is that in practice it's become a lot more than that. So all the more reason why I do support getting this done today in the components that we're doing, but also taking a look more globally at the entire code and really thinking about what's optimal there for everything and dividing it into two parts.
Well, thank you, and I'll take this opportunity to reiterate. Part of my concern with the number of vendors was the number of vehicles parked in there. I wish there was a way to limit the number of vehicles. I'm not convinced that every vendor needs to have a car parked there through the duration. And when I've talked with visitors and patrons they've reflected the same thing. It's different when, say, Bennett's or somebody shows up there and they've got the back of their truck filled with apples or produce or whatever, versus craft vendors that could well park 2 or 3 blocks away from the park to accommodate extra parking spaces for patronage. So anyhow, whoever makes the motion, I will not support going over 38. I would tolerate that, if you will. We need to go to the public. There's no more commissioners want to say anything right now. Marty Johnson, are you still on?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, Marty. We hear you clearly.
Okay, fine. First, I would like to say that we would be happy, I'm sure the board would be happy to sit down in the future to have some input if you do think of revising the ordinance even further on a second step or something. But the second thing is a couple points. 38 vendors would be fine. 40 would be maybe better, but 38 would be fine, I think, with the board. And just to keep in mind that they are seasonal. So the 2 months that we have a full number of vendors usually would be July and August. The rest of the months, there are not as many vendors there. The second thing is that we are nonprofit, of course, and we have no financial support from the city. So we haven't taken any, we haven't had any financial support from Rehoboth. Our funding is usually through some of the vendor fees and what we can sell at our information table, and donations from various businesses throughout the city. I think that's about it. If you have any other questions, we do have, for the most part, it's one vehicle per vendor. So I'm not sure where the information is coming from that there are more vehicles, because usually the vendor will bring their produce or whatever they have it's either in the trunk or on a trailer or a big van. So
thank you.
That's it.
Okay, thank you, Marty. I think you're referring to my comment, more vehicles. There are more vehicles than if there were 25 vendors. And that gives me great pause. That's why I have no interest in going above 40, and I'd rather stay at 35, which is approximate number I heard that might be acceptable to you. Doesn't seem like it's acceptable to anybody else. So good news for you. Maybe the motion would be for 38, but understanding that the bigger numbers are in the summertime, that's fine. But I still think above 38 is way too many. And so now you know how I'm going to. Commissioner Srnowski.
Mayor, I'm sorry. You can finish the public comment first.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Marty. Walter, you wanted to speak?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your comments about 38, but the trust was broken and they didn't give a damn. And it's not the board that runs the farmers market. In the opinion of most people, they don't even know who the board is. It belongs to Pat Caluzzi. And who's going to say anything about her? You get the policeman and everybody because she's a city commissioner. And that's the attitude of most people that understand what's going on. In a positive sense, the holiday market is well received. It's not excessive and it works fine. Most of you did not see, the police conveniently didn't see the alpacas or whatever they are with the trucks and trailers blocking the entryway to the restroom. And finally, they put a little pathway subsequently to get around it, but they've got no business being there. Somebody's forgotten about the bikes that come down Henlopen Avenue, and now you want to put bike paths. I don't think that'll happen, but the bikes become a big problem down there with the people. And then you got people parked on both sides of the street. Again, you have no police protection because they hold up the fence there by the restroom. Now, remember, we have $100 a year. We're going to put it to $500. So if you have 10 meetings and the city is going to be down there for 10 meetings, $50 is pretty cheap. Whoever, Jay, not picking on you, I think as you said about the yellow curbs, we don't have curbs down there. The only yellow is where you turn the corners. The stop sign got moved off the roadway. the farmer's market serves a very good function, and it's happy and everything else. This has been a bad season. You can't back up when you go by per the governor's instructions. God help the man, he's done a good job. But the farmer's market's too big. It's got to be backed up. It ought to go back to 25 and live with it for a while. And don't do something else and then go have the meeting first, but it ought to stop now. Thank you.
Thank you, Walter. With that, there's no more public that identified their desire to talk. Commissioner Sernowski?
Sure. Mayor, I think I was the one that was all about 40, and I'm willing to go down to 38, which I think is the consensus. The other thing I'd like to just mention, a valuable part that the farmers market brings, and it has provided an opportunity for so many nonprofits and community organization groups to set up there, connect with the public. Commissioner Gay herself just mentioned about the commemorative tree program, brought in $6,000 from being able to participate in the farmers market. So I just think that's worth mentioning on its value to connecting with the community.
Very good. Good point, Commissioner Sernowski. Thank you. Commissioner Byrne?
Yes, Mayor, I'm ready to make a motion when you're ready for that.
Is there any other comment from the commissioners?
Just one, and Commissioner Sernowski, I agree with you. I think the civic and public input is very valuable and bodes well for the market. But currently, that is a prohibited use according to the code. So that's why I'm saying to take this in 2 steps to look at those types of things, that the issues that are there now and are functional that we couldn't envision back in when the code was written, to bring those into the code so that we are in compliance with the code and move it forward. So that's why I proposed a 2-step program for this. Thank you.
And I'm in complete agreement with that. And there might need to be some enforcement, as Mr. Whittingham has suggested.
Thank you. All right, Commissioner Byrne, will entertain a motion. If you would cite in there a reference to version of March 12th and include the number of vendors that we're going to change this to.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I move adoption of the March 12th, 2021 adoption of an ordinance to amend Chapter 148 Farmers Market of the City Code by amending sections 148-2, 148-9, and 148-18 relating to the definition of season, the number of allowable vendors to be limited to 38, and the permit fee to be raised to $500 per year.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Byrne and a second by Commissioner Sernowski to amend Chapter 148 Farmers Market, the sections noted, with the inclusion of the one change to the maximum number of vendors at 38. This is based on the version of March 12th in front of us. With that, I don't know if we can do a group vote, and if we want a roll call vote afterwards, we can do that. We'll start with Commissioner Gossett.
I vote aye.
Commissioner Legree.
Aye.
Commissioner Gay.
Aye.
Commissioner Byrne.
Aye.
Commissioner Sernowski.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. The ordinance is amended unanimously. With a maximum of 38 vendors. Thank you all for participating. Thank you, Marty and Walter, for your comments. With that, we're going to go to the item of new business, which is consider adoption of city budget for the fiscal year April 1st, 2021 through March 31st, 2022. This is, we had, I believe, 5 budget meetings on this. And we'll turn it over to the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. we did have 5 meetings. We started with this budget on January 4th of this year. So we've finally come to this time. Again, the balanced budget, $27,682,385. That includes $4,726,172 in a robust capital improvement program. I applaud the Director of Public Works and the department heads for continuing to think about maintenance and projects that improve the overall quality of life for our citizens. The CIP, of course, includes the insertion of items that were deferred from last year due to this year, I would say, due to the pandemic. Also includes Delaware Avenue restroom expansion, stormwater design, phase 3 of the parking meters. There's 29 new parking meters to be installed. A $1 million plus expense in the wastewater department, not including the wastewater treatment plant upgrades, and a $1 million plus increase in the water department's budget. That includes a $500,000 fee for continuing our program to replace meters. In the budget from last time we discussed this, or removed from the budget, is a $75,000 amount for the tot lot and $53,000 to defer the Lake Girard accretion project. We also have in the expense line in the budget a 2% increase for city employees. We have money in there to continue with the important comprehensive development plan. We have money in there for police negotiations, which will be underway at the end of 2021. We have 7 leased vehicles in there that continue. This is the 3rd year of our program to save money on vehicles, which we'll hopefully see a better picture of in a couple of years. But we continue that program, and everything else that we've discussed in the 5 meetings that are in here, including obviously the meterless Monday inclusion, and what makes up for every department. And I would like to say and thank the department heads, all the department heads, for starting out this process last October in being very mindful to keep expenses down as much as they could due to the unknown and due to the related revenue decreases that we were expecting. On the good side of that, of course, is a continued upward trend in transfer tax revenue. We will undoubtedly, at the end of this fiscal year, have property transfer tax over $4 million this year. I'm happy to report also that our rental tax, as of through February, has hit our budget number of $2 million, and actually has increased by approximately $130,000. So as much as I can say, and as Mr. Dukes has said to me on many occasions, we're in good shape. We continue to be optimistic about this end of the fiscal year and continue to be very cautious, very conservative in our budget numbers for 2022. we know that these trends will most likely not continue. I'm not, usually optimistic, but I'm very cautious, and we need to be very mindful of the fact that we had a very good year as far as revenue from other sources that offset the decreased parking revenue of almost $2 million that we had due to the pandemic. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm extremely thankful to the hard work that my staff put into this, including Mr. Dukes, Mr. Williams, Mr. Miller, the police chief, and all of the department heads. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. I'm sorry. Remind me of the total amount of the budget. Is that the 27,682,385 number?
That's correct.
That's the amount of the budget for this year. I want to thank you and everybody for the effort put into this. I thought we did a good job over 5 sessions to vet all this. I do want to say something that I'm very proud of you and pleased with you, even though I wasn't on board a year ago when COVID took in, that you immediately started to check expenses and cut back on everything. And I thought you did an excellent job. And I have no doubt that you'll be able to continue that this year, as you see as proved. Thank you for a good job. With that, we'll go to the commissioners. We do have a member of the public that would like to speak also. Any members of the commission? Commissioner Legree.
I think this is a very optimistic budget, but I believe it deserves it. I think we're going to have a great year. Talking to folks in my neighborhood who are renting out properties, everybody's really positive, and I almost don't want to talk about it. But I think we're going to have a great year. It's good that we caught up on the Boardwalk and Beach Committee. Thanks you for catching up on the CIP items that we weren't able to do in FY 2021, and I think FY 2022 is going to be a great year, and I'm happy with the budget. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Legree. Commissioner Srnowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to start off by congratulating the city manager and her staff navigating us through what could have been a terrible, terrible year. And we got lucky with transfer tax and some other areas that ended up coming in higher, but we didn't just get lucky. It took a lot of hard work and sacrifice to get us where we are in the position we are right now and able to be optimistic going into 2022. I just have one question for the city manager and/or Burke. I'm looking, and I apologize if we've discussed this before, and I think we have, but I can't find it. One of the priorities I think many of us discussed was having the code rewritten by a professional. And I think some part of that was dedicated to start in 2022, but I don't see it on the CIP, and I don't see it in the operating budget as either.
So, Commissioner, to address that, there are some funds that can be used in contracted services for that. We have a very good contingency fund, I'll say as well. And Mr. Dukes is handing me over so in the contract services, and I think that, we can, and professional services, we can make up for some of this. I also will say that Mayor Mills has requested that we look into, as far as the zoning code, looking into not just a rewrite of our zoning code, but also a different approach and form-based codes, and I'll be presenting some information to that for you about that in upcoming months. But you know, it's an ongoing process. We did budget a mere $10,000 this year for some issues that we needed to tackle head on with the zoning code. If you'll recall, we had, like, I call it the top 10 list of issues that needed to be taken into consideration soon. We have compiled that list, we've discussed that list, and I'll be bringing that forward in the near future as well. So it's not an easy task. You know, a total zoning code rewrite takes a long time. It takes careful consideration. I believe it takes probably some public input, and there is nothing specific that you'll see, but of course we have professional services, contractual services to move forward on.
Well, let me comment since I started that. If you recall, many months ago, we indicated that there was interest in it and that I would do some research. So I did direct the city manager to do some research into it. As far as the approach to rewriting a zoning code, looking at form-based code, for me, the key is to start with education of all ourselves so that we actually know what all the different processes are and what it means for form-based code and what the alternatives in. So that's where I directed the city manager to do some research. And so in the future, we will possibly have likely have a dedicated meeting to that topic. So thank you very much. Commissioner Srnowski, did you have anything further you wanted to say?
That is it. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Commissioner Gay?
Yeah, first of all, I don't think I'll ever forget this day last year. For those of you who were here, it was not only we were reeling from the news of the city being closed and the state being closed. It was all such new information, and we actually convened by phone to approve the budget because the whole video had not even been set up yet. I believe it was a fairly short meeting, and we all went into it saying, you know, we really got to be careful this year. We really got to be careful. And frankly, it's nothing short of miraculous with dedication by the staff that the year has turned out as well as it has. It really has. I thank City Manager Lynn and her entire team for helping us through this year. It's, as I said, it's nothing short of miraculous, and I feel very, very fortunate for the city to have come out the way we are. And looking ahead to this year, you know, it is hard to imagine transfer tax being quite as good as this current year, partly because from what I can tell, there's very little, almost no inventory. However, there's probably a bunch of sales that may not close till after April. So the first quarter might be pretty good. Beyond that, who knows? But rentals, and to tag on to what Jay said about his neighbors who are renting, I have read and heard this recently from everyone that rentals are way ahead for the season. So I think that it will be a very robust season, and I think it's a really good budget, and I'm pleased that we're able to do the things that we heard last year. So thank you again, Sharon, to your whole staff. That's all.
I think City Hall got frozen.
Oh, really? Oh.
Well, now I see movement now.
No, I don't see either.
Stan, we can't hear you.
I think you're frozen.
Mayor?
Hold on.
Okay. I hope I don't have to repeat.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me now? All righty. Good. The Verizon's working.
And did you hear
Commissioner? I'm sorry, Commissioner Gay?
Did you hear everything I said? It didn't go out before.
Yes.
That. Okay,
yes,
great.
we did. We did. Went out right after you. So you are memorialized. With that, we'll go to Commissioner Byrne.
Yes, it's getting to be a long afternoon, so I won't belabor the budget discussion, but I certainly want to echo what the previous commissioners have stated, that I think we are in such a tremendous place in the city of Rehoboth Beach to have City Manager Lynn and her entire team working on behalf of our residents and property owners and businesses. We're in such a good place compared to so many communities, small and large. And we've gone through these 5 budget meeting discussions. They've been tremendous, I think, in terms of the give and take. The fact that we've had some good debates, some lively discussions. I think we've all listened to each other. We've learned from each other. And the city team has just done a great job in pulling it together in between all of our discussions. So I'm very happy with what's been proposed. I certainly intend to support it fully. I would like to ask, because I've got a number of neighbors that every time I go out to enjoy the dog, seem to ask me about two of their favorite topics in this general neighborhood. And I'm not trying to micromanage the city manager at all. I just want to go on record of hearing from Kevin on one and the city manager on the other, so that everyone that lives in this general area can be assured that over the course of this next budget year, that beginning work, Kevin, is going to happen on crosswalks on State Road where Grove and Munson intersect. Can you give us briefly what you see as a timeline on that work happening?
Yes, Commissioner, thanks for bringing that up. We expect that the design and permitting is happening now. Permitting should take probably a couple months with DelDOT, but we wouldn't look to do any of the construction until after the season. So probably October, November-ish, we would start doing the work out there.
That sounds tremendous. Thank you very much. And we do have 50,000 that we're proposing to put into this design phase. And just for everyone to know that this is a DelDOT road, so it's taken a lot of work on behalf of Mr. Williams and his team to get us to this point. Thank you very much. And City Manager, could you just give us a brief update as to what you see as funding and a timeline for doing the beautification garden area of the triangle on State Road where we go in and out of 1B?
Yes, Commissioner. So the funding is not yet in place. I'm hoping to receive some information. I need to talk to the mayor first about that. As soon as we get it out there and put out actually, we've already contacted 3 vendors for their proposals, so that's still in the works. But I would hope by the May-June timeframe for that. There's still some work being done over there in another matter under the Director of Public Works direction. So once we get that out of the way, I think that we can come up with a plan for that. So to answer your question, May-June timeline.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate it a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Coluzzi?
Yes, I won't keep everyone much longer, but I do really want to thank the city manager, Sharon Lynn, and her team has just done a wonderful job for us. I really, we're so lucky to have her and her team, and they really work so well together, and it's just a joy to see. And so thank you. Looking forward to a good year. I really, like Commissioner LaGree says, I think it's probably going to be a great year. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Gossett?
Yes, just to follow along here, I'm really grateful to have City Manager Lynn and her staff that work so diligently to manage the money and the finances of the city in such a responsible way. But the added responsibility this year that of her specific management and oversight with regards to the health, safety, and welfare of our staff and employees during this COVID period has just been overwhelming. The steps that you have taken personally, Ms. Lynn, to ensure that the safety of all of our staff are protected, and going to additional steps of throughout the entire staff, not only within the public works, but also the steps you've taken recently about vaccination of workers and what have you. That is above and beyond what is called for. And I just want to make sure that you're recognized for those steps that you've taken. It's not in your job description, but it certainly is greatly appreciated for what you do and to maintain the consistency of our staff and the professionalism that you handle it with. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. If there's any more staff comments, are you fine?
I'm fine. This is a labor of love, and we're finally here. So I think the sooner the commissioners vote on it, the happier I'll be. So thank you all for your comments too.
So if there's no more commissioner comments, I'll entertain a motion to adopt the $27,682,385 balanced budget for the upcoming fiscal year.
So moved.
Second.
So we've got a motion by Commissioner Calusi and second by Edward Chanowski to approve the this year's fiscal budget as presented in the amount of $27,682,385. All those in favor of adopting the budget as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. And the motion is carried unanimously. Thank you to all that worked on this.
Thank you.
With that, we'll go right on to the next item.
Can the public have a comment on that?
I'm sorry, Walter. I wish you'd spoken up earlier. Yes.
You're doing fine, because you didn't need for what I have to say, but I will.
Go ahead. That's all right. Go ahead.
I will tell you that, first of all, Sharon, because this was about you also, and to all the people out there that listened, and to the people that didn't listen, how lucky we are to have the budget process the way it works. Because as bidding last year took away the Delaware Avenue restroom, it comes back. We're still in a situation that went back to Mr. Paris that far back. We have no bids probably going to come in because we use our vendor that serves us so well, in the words of Ms. Lingo. It'll probably be a no bid issue for the park. But to go to the absolute positive situation, the openness of the budget proceedings, thanks to the mayor, serious changes from beforehand to the positive, and the city manager, and with cooperation and input from Mr. Dukes and Ann's dissemination of information, it's really inexcusable that the people don't know what's happening. And to all of you, and commissioners, I don't always agree with what you do, but the mere fact that you serve, I thank you all.
Thank you, Waller. And I apologize for skipping over you. Appreciate your comments. With that, we're going to go to the next item of business, which is report on status of Wilmington Baltimore Avenue Streetscape Project and timelines, and introduce nominations for membership on this particular task force. The project team we identified earlier is Sharon Lynn, Kevin Williams, Evan Miller, Chief of Police, and me. We met as a project team with Del Dot and Rossi, who is our consultant designer, in early February. We started soliciting task force membership soon afterwards. We introduced the nominees today. The time schedule here I'm trying to share with you. We will vote, this Board of Commissioners, after being introduced to the nominees today, will vote March 23rd at our special meeting that's being shared with the tree review topic, and we'll vote those members in. The first task force meeting will be scheduled for Wednesday, March 31st at 9:00 a.m. Allow for 2+ hours because the first topics are heavy duty. Because some of the job scope of Rossi includes one-way streets, pedestrian plazas, and undergrounding of utilities, Our first task force meeting will address those three topics. Repeat in more detail. One-way streets consideration would mean Baltimore Avenue, the second block would be one-way in or out from the ocean. Wilmington, the second block, would be one-way toward the ocean or one-way out. And that is for discussion. There's nothing set in stone. And that's the purpose of the task force. Also, they'd be talking about pedestrian plazas. Do we want to cut off the first blocks and make them entirely or part of them pedestrian plazas? Do we want to do that with the second block? Those are all part of the discussion thing. Also, the third topic we want to look at starting with this first meeting is undergrounding of utilities. It's a rather expensive proposition, very complicated, but we want to get that out early. So those discussions would likely carry over to a second task force meeting on April 7th. But we would have an update to the Board of Commissioners at the April workshop on April 5. Are you following this?
Yeah, yes.
We would bring to a conclusion the Board of Commissioners meeting April 13th or 16th and conduct a vote among the Board of Commissioners on the directions which way to go. We need to direct Rossi to either consider the one-way streets, consider or not the pedestrian pathways, and consider or not the undergrounding. And this is because some of the job scope of Rossi includes these things. And if we're going to get rid of them, then let's not waste their time or our time. Let's put them on the shelf early, or let's give them direction to do that. And I think that we've got enough people in the neighborhood where we can do a good job talking about this. Part of the discussion may involve a traffic study, and that would likely at least be mentioned and brought up at the first meeting, I believe. And again, we will heavily advertise our meetings for the awareness of the entire community, because public input is vital and welcome. We've got a lot of smart people and business people and residents in town that can give us some good direction on the pros and cons of these particular concepts. The results of the vote will set course or adjust course for Rossi, as I mentioned. So for the nominations, I sent out to the commissioners late today, because it was only prepared late today, a support document that we will embed in the agenda for the March 23rd meeting. And let me see if I can even share this with you. Give me 1 second. There we go. Again, I cannot, when I have a shared document on the screen, I cannot see all the commissioners. So if you have a question, you'll need to speak up. I wanted to share with you this document, which again will become a support document for March 23rd special meeting. The nomination committee was Mayor Stan Mills, Sharon Lynn, Kevin Williams, and Evan Miller. Our selection process, goodness gracious, we looked at all the applicants. I think there were 24 applicants. Doggone it, it was way too hard to try to pick and choose because everybody's good. So we tried to come up with a simple formula, and that was generally per the specified block, first 1 or 2 applicants submitted were put on there. The listings below identify all the applicants in order of application submittal, but the underlined ones are the selected nominees that our little nomination committee is bringing forward. So we'll review them real quickly with you. We've got the chair is Stan Mills, representing. We tried to divide them up. If you remember the roles and responsibilities we did for this group, we tried to suggest that let's try to put somebody on from each block to represent. So Wilmington Avenue first block representatives, you can see the names here that submitted applications and happen to have businesses on those streets. And we selected Frank Cole. Frank Cole owns a bicycle shop in the first block of Wilmington. He also, as a bonus to us, owns a bicycle shop in the second block of Baltimore, so he'll do double duty.
He also
The
has one on
Wilmington
First.
Avenue second block representative, Joe Baker. Joe Baker owns Henlopen City Oyster House Restaurant and also the Blue Hen Restaurant. So he'll do double duty. In the Baltimore Avenue first block, we selected Elise Moore, who's an owner of the Admiral Motel, and we selected Andy Medic, who is an owner of Sea Change Vacations, I believe. Sea Something Vacations in the church area building there. Baltimore Avenue second block representative. We selected Jenny Burton. She's a property owner at the Shops at 33 Baltimore. Excuse me. But she also owns the shops at the Rehoboth Muse. That's the alley where Coffee Mill, etc. are in there. We also have selected for nomination Randy Haney. He is an owner, co-owner of the Blue Moon. We selected David Mariner. He's the executive director of Camp Rehoboth. And we chose these two equally because they submitted the same day, about the same time. We couldn't pick one or the other, so we put them both on there. North First Street representative, Patty Hoffman. In the South First Street perspective, representative is Bob Pomerantz. Bob owns the Brighton Suites Hotel, which fronts on South First Street. It also fronts on Wilmington. He also owns Hunt and Lane retail shop on the second block of Wilmington. So we get double duty from Bob. Daniel Fosnot, not to be mistaken for the Fosnots, and I don't know how they're pronounced differently, but they're certainly spelled differently there. Daniel is the manager of Oceanus Motel, and he would be representing South 2nd Street area. We wanted to select, if you recall, 2 citizens. The first 2 to apply was Howard Menaker and Frank Cooper, and you can see all the rest there that filed in later. With the Chamber of Commerce, Carol Everhart recommended Alex Moore, and we're nominating Alex Moore because he is a co-owner of Beachview Hotel, first block of Wilmington, Avenue Inn that fronts on Rehoboth Avenue and Wilmington. You remember they even did a little miniature streetscape of their own. And then he also owns properties in mid-block on the south side of Wilmington Avenue. So we get triple duty from having Alex Moore serve on the task force as a member of the Chamber of Commerce representative. Main Street representative, they asked if Commissioner Ed Chernowski could represent them. So we've nominated him. And Street and Transportation Committee and the Parking Task Force are chaired by Commissioner Fluzzi. I asked Commissioner Fluzzi if she would like to nominate anybody or herself, and you can see what her answer was there. This yields a 16-member task force. We were actually targeting 15, but again, we had a hard time culling it and trying to get it down a little bit. I will say how I intend to present this to the public and to the other all the members of the task force is that while they represent an area or multiple areas, I would hope that all the other businesses that applied, as well as those that didn't apply, that are on their block, reach out to either a chamber representative, Alex Moore, chamber representative, Commissioner Chris Chernowski, or reach out to one or more of their closest street representatives, such as Frank Cole, representing some of the first block of Wilmington, etc. So those are our nominations, which I would bring forward for a vote on March 23rd. Ex officio members are Sharon Lynn, Keith Banks, Kevin Williams, Max Hamby, Mike Peterman, Evan Miller. They would all have city background information to be able to share with us. This is just reiteration of the affiliations of the different members. I will share that we did have Mr. Albers from the Design Center of Rehoboth, he's right behind Crystal Restaurant, I believe. But that was outside of our membership criteria, and so we did not nominate him. And of course, you can see all the others up above that we're not nominating. It's merely because we needed to try to limit this to 15 or 16 members. I don't know how many of you are old enough like me, I think Patrick is, to remember the Architectural Review Board Task Force of maybe 15 plus years ago. That had 15 members on it. And at that time, we, of course, were all only meeting face to face. And admittedly, that was a challenge at time to manage. So we'll do our best with virtual meetings and hope to be able to meet face to face eventually in the future. I did want to share with you that how we solicited potential members. And that is, I went out and did hand delivery of solicitation letters throughout the project area. If you remember, the entire project area encompasses first 2 blocks of Baltimore, first 2 blocks of Wilmington, North 1st Street, South 1st Street in those areas, and then just a section of South 2nd Street. So I hand walked all that area. Unfortunately, many businesses were closed midweek, or they had not yet reopened. And so we additionally had the Chamber of Commerce send out an e-blast to all their members and to advertise for and solicit for membership. Main Street did the same thing. We did a city email blast. We also did a press release to the Cape Gazette, and we did targeted mailing to all the businesses in that area. So we think we got a good mixture. We think everybody got them in time. Those that wanted to be on applied. But as I mentioned earlier in my report on solicitation of all members, all committee members, even though the deadline was March 17th, we're still taking applications because if anybody falls through the cracks or decides they don't want to be on it, then we'll have replacements in line and ready to go. Let me see if I can share one more thing with you. How do I get out of this, out of that? I'm going to try to share one more document. I can't find it. Here you go. I'll also share the support document in the next agenda for March 23rd. A little color map that I did that will highlight the different areas in the project area and where each of the representatives has a business or owns property, etc. So I think that'll help you all out. Are there any questions? We'll start with Commissioner Srnowski.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple comments and then a request, I suppose. Just to give more bang for each of these people. You mentioned Frank Cole. He also has a place on North 1st Street, which is an added benefit. And Andy Medic is also a resident of Rehoboth. So I think those are 2 extra boxes that are checked with those 2 individuals. And I understand that there has not specifically been a citizen or resident applicant that actually lives on one of those 2 streets, but I think if we could actively try to find someone that lives on one of these streets in question, I'd rather have them either replace one of the citizens or be in addition to, but I think it's very important to have someone that lives on one of the cited streets involved in this process.
Thank you. A couple comments. One is Frank Cole does own a 3rd bicycle shop on North 1st Street, but it's out of the project area. And then I don't disagree with getting a resident in there, but you pick the person that you want to knock off, a business person. That's very, very challenging. I will say that in all our marketing for our meetings and everything, and as I normally do for every committee I've ever chaired, is I welcome input from any and everybody, and we will continue to do that because we just cannot have everybody on board with this committee. It's just not going to happen. It's not, even 16 is frankly, I think, too wieldy for a virtual meeting, but we're going to give it our best shot. So thank you for that comment. Any other comments? If not, then the agenda is already amended for our March 23rd meeting. The second part of that meeting will be our third tree meeting, I believe. And the first part of that meeting will be voting on appointments to committees, not just the task force committee, but I believe any other committee that's ready. I think Boardwalk committee might be ready. With that, if there's no further comments, the next agenda item is commissioner announcements. None, hearing none. We'll go review future meeting dates. Tuesday, March 23rd, 3 o'clock. That's where we vote members to start and we continue with the tree review. Wednesday, March 31, 9 o'clock a.m. Wilmington, Baltimore Task Force meeting number 1. That can be a 2 to 3 hour meeting depending upon how quickly we can get through it. That's again, introduction to one-way streets, pedestrian plazas, and undergrounding of utilities. Monday, April 5th, 9 o'clock a.m., Board of Commissioners workshop. Wednesday, April 7th, 9 o'clock a.m., Wilmington, Baltimore Task Force meeting number 2. And et cetera. With that, Wesley Paulson would like to make a citizen comment at the end here. And Wesley, are you still on board?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, we can hear you clearly.
I wanted to read in the record a comment from Clear Space Theater following the meeting that you had yesterday.
Okay.
Clear Space Theater is obviously disappointed by yesterday's decision to delay the appeal hearing until June 14th. Time is money, and Clear Space has already suffered substantial damages as a result of the delay already caused, including lost grant monies, lost revenue, and substantially greater construction costs. Both the city building inspector and the planning commission approved the current plans and found them compliant. And we are confident that the mayor and council will come to the same conclusion on June 14th and allow us to move ahead to bring this gem to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. As you know, we sit in a appellate seat, so we are unable to respond other than to acknowledge it. And as I did during that particular meeting, I acknowledged the one letter that you did email to us. Thank you, Wesley. By the way, I just want to let everybody know that the meeting agenda for Thursday, yesterday the 18th, only had so many letters embedded in them. I want to remind everybody that because of the Freedom of Information Act, we have limits on when we can, and deadlines when we can embed correspondence into the email. Embed into the agenda. And I will say that Ann has very diligently taken all the correspondence off that particular agenda, but put a correspondence link in so that by merely accessing that agenda, clicking on the correspondence link, you will see every bit of correspondence and communication that came in referencing that March 18th special meeting. With that, if there's no further comment, I would like to thank everybody for a meeting, and we will adjourn this meeting at 5:08 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you.